Hey there, dive buddies, and welcome to the show. In 1904, the SS Nemesis sank, and in June 2025, a team from Sydney Project successfully dived and mapped the wreck. You may think that is no big deal, however, the wreck is located at a depth of 160 metres. Today, I've got two of those divers with me, Sydney Project founder Samir Alhafith and Navy clearance diver Lieutenant Pnevski, who will take us through this incredible project and talk about the technicalities of this dangerous dive.
Welcome to the Scuba Goat Podcast with Matt Waters. Let's dive right in.
Samir, Russ, welcome to the show, boys.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
My absolute pleasure. The very first question I've got to ask, are you barking mad?
Well, we've been, asked that question a few times, and sometimes I question our own sanity, to tell you the truth.
I think I'd have a few wires loose to be doing some of the dives like this, so potentially.
Yeah, and it's not like it's your first one, is it? You guys are
no,
doing this on a regular basis.
But my mum still asks me every time I go diving, it's like, is there sharks there?
My brother was asking me about sharks the other day. He's got an absolute fear of sharks, and he's gone on holiday in the Mediterranean, sent a photo, and he's ankle deep in water. He said, this is as far as I'm going.
Yeah.
So you do realise there's nothing left in the Mediterranean, let alone the sharks.
Correct. I think that's probably one of the biggest questions we get asked, I reckon, is about sharks.
Yeah. And
I'm always like, you know what, sharks are like the least of my... There is so many more things to consider with dives like this that if I get taken by a shark, I can't control that. That's just, it's well beyond anything I can control. So.
Do you actually see many at all?
Well, we use shark pods. They're electronic shark repellents.
Yeah.
So if anyone never seen one, commercial divers use them, and they create this field, like an electronic field around the electrode that the sharks, they've got this electric receptors in their snout, which they pick up minute electric currents, and apparently that field is very uncomfortable for them. So we've been using them from pretty much since we started back in 2003, and was given to us for free by the company that was developing them at the time. To this day, we have not seen a single shark on deco. So I don't know whether these things work so well that you don't get a shark within 5 kilometer radius of the deco, or there's just no sharks in the water, because I haven't seen any.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any either on anything big like this.
Yeah.
Mostly like other dives, but not when we've been diving on deco, which is... I know when you're kind of doing 6 hours of deco, you're kind of hoping to see something.
There's a bit of entertainment.
Yeah, a bit of something. Otherwise, it's just staring in the water.
And we even had a fishbowl once come around us, hiding under our boat and all around us, from dolphins near Montague Island down the south coast, which is absolutely teeming with marine life. Yeah. And you get these, bait balls like you see in National Geographic, with birds and dolphins and seals hitting them, and lots of sharks. There was everything except for sharks.
Wow. And you'd expect to see them down there, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, they are very prominent down there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Hey, what we should do actually is just explain how on earth you guys ended up chucking fins on and going for a dive, like right in the beginning. So, Russ, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, I'll go first. So my, diving sort of adventure career sort of started with me wanting to do what I currently do as a job, which is a clearance diver in the Navy. So I was probably about 15 at the time, and I always wanted to join the military. I've got a military family background, so I always wanted to do that as a career, and I initially wanted to join the army, and then someone I knew said like, if I could do my career again, they were in the army, and if I could do my career again, I'd join as a clearance diver. And I kind of didn't really think about it. I was like, oh, Navy, that's sort of, and I sort of had a look into it. Fortunately for me at the time, there was a doco released a year prior called Navy Divers, and I watched that and kind of got inspired by it, and did a bit of research and decided that this is exactly what I wanted to do. This was, it sort of ticked all the right boxes for me. And soon after that, I thought, well, if I'm going to invest my entire, to get there, it's a pretty long journey, and can be quite challenging. And I said to myself, well, if I'm going to invest all this time and effort to get there, I should probably figure out if I actually enjoyed diving. And soon after that, went for a dive. I was very fortunate to grow up on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, which is surrounded by like 3 different bodies of water. Diving is quite big up there, down there. A lot of technical divers from down there, and beautiful diving destination in Australia as well. And I kind of got hooked on from that, and diving became no longer a focus on to get into my career. It became like my passion and the thing that I did outside of work. And I didn't get into clearance diving until a long time after. I was already a technical diver and doing some of these big dives. But that was definitely part of the process of getting into diving, was doing it as a career. And so kind of by pure coincidence worked sort of hand in hand, getting both the professional side as well as the personal side of it. Yeah.
What about you, Sammy?
For me, it's probably began, I'd say probably when I was about 7 or 6 years old, when we used to live in Kuwait, in the Middle East, in the Gulf area. And whenever we went to the beach over there, I was the only one. Every kid was playing soccer on the beach. I was the only one in about half a meter of water with a mask on, just looking at every little minute creature, everything over there. And then when we moved to Australia, and I started to go out with a girl down in Wollongong, just south of Sydney, and she lived, again, Wollongong, coastal town. Everything's on the beach over there. So I used to go fishing, but I was a very bad fisherman. I could not catch a cold if I wanted to in the middle of winter. And I saw these couple of guys spearfishing one day, and I see they're coming out with fish. I thought, well, that's a bloody good idea. At least you can see what you're catching. So I thought, okay, I'll go do this snorkel thing again. And mind you, I had absolutely zero concept of seasons of ocean in Australia. You know, coming from the Gulf, water degrees is always like 30 degrees over there. Come over here in the middle of winter, jump in with board shorts, and I would last about 10 minutes before I frozen blue. And thought, oh, it's just so much fun. I'm, catching fish, but I can't stay there for too long because I'm getting too cold. And then eventually got introduced to a thing called a wetsuit back in the 90s. Like, fashion now has gone baggy again. We used to wear baggy clothes. I wore this wetsuit. I'm like, oh my God. I said to the guy in the surf shop, do you have something a bit looser? He goes, no. The whole concept of wetsuit has got to be tight. So anyway, ended up, I was working in a company in Sydney, and one of the guys said to me, I'm going to do a dive course in deep six diving in West Ryde. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize there's a dive shop all the way West Ryde. So went over there, and pretty much it was history. I was from literally jumping in the pool at Lankov pool with the scuba. I was just hooked. And after that, down again in Wollongong, when I first dived the Bombo, the wreck over there, I was literally like a pig in shit. That was for me. It's like, it doesn't matter what the visibility was. I just wanted to see more and more rust. And it sort of just went from there.
So you're a rust addict?
I love it.
Yeah.
Love
it. Are you a rust addict as well?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I do both. I do wreck and cave. I've got all my cave certs. Yeah, both of us do it. And I don't know, I think I always answer this question when people ask is with the difference between cave and wreck is for me the conditions sort of never change, and I love the challenging concepts of cave, like when you're going through like tight squeezes and finding new sections to dive through. But once you start doing like the same caves, or you do kind of the same passageways, it kind of gets sort of boring, and always constantly having to find sort of new sections, new things to go through. Whereas I can dive the same wreck, 100 times, but every single time will be different. The conditions will be different. The marine life will be different. There's different aspects of the dive that will always be different, I guess, in ocean. And that's because of the nature of the ocean. It constantly changes. Whereas in cave diving, no matter what the conditions are outside the cave, I mean, I've gotten out of a cave dive into an absolute like hurricane, and didn't even know until I got out that the rain was coming in sideways. Left when it was sunlight, came back with the absolute storm overhead. Couldn't tell the difference. It's always 14 degrees cold, and the visibility is usually pretty clear until you stir it up. Yeah. But like I said, the conditions really never change, and
it's not like the stalactites are going to move anytime soon.
No, that's right. You kind of it's definitely interesting, and once you get like into it, it's definitely interesting. But after a while, you're kind of like, oh, I've seen these passages like 100 times now. It's like, what else is there? Whereas I think with the ocean, and particularly with the history of wrecks, it's for me, it's more interesting anyway.
Yeah, fair one.
I think with cave diving is, if you're going especially places no one's ever been, this is the type of stuff I love, like down in Tasmania or any other places, especially where there's no politics involved. Cave diving is so much politics with regards to access, and there's, I don't know, it seems like there's more competition between cave divers, about who's going to go first, and it's sometimes can be a little bit of a dick measuring exercise.
Yeah.
I mean, wreck diving does have its own sort of issues with regards to, sometimes access and whatever, but it's not as bad as cave diving, just because purely it's on, private lands or national parks or whatever, and that's everywhere around the world. It's not a unique situation just in Australia. But, you love going, in the bush and doing climbing and hiking and that sort of stuff. It's it's wonderful. I'd love to go to Nullarbor and explore, just the middle of a desert caves. It's an adventure in itself, Yeah. But with wrecks, it's an underwater museum. You've got history. You've got a different type of exploration you want to do, and so. We don't want to say, we love one more than the other and stuff. It's just I enjoy wreck diving more purely because I love history. I love the exercise of finding out more how that site connects with people. Caves is more how this environment connects with the nature. Yeah. You've got different aspects of what you want to do. It's... like I said, there's no competition at the start as they are at the back of the wreck divers. Don't like cave divers and whatnot. We joke around and say, rocks are just as wet at the start as they are at the back of the. So it's just different, different aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, going on from those somewhat, you started a little project, the Sydney project.
Yes, back in 2003, we officially incorporated the Sydney project, and it sort of started out of boredom of diving the same shipwrecks locally. Mm-hmm. Like Russ mentioned, with regards to some of the caves that you can, dive the same thing over and over, and you do get bored. And that was the case with us when we were doing stuff out of Long Reef and just even the sort of more deeper wrecks, the little bit more challenging wrecks sort of down the road. But I sat down with Richard Taylor when he used to run TDI Australia back then in the early 2000s, and sort of said to him, mate, do you know guys who would be willing to go out and put a little group together? We can go and look for some deeper wrecks or wrecks that hasn't been found, because you got to look at sort of the timeline. Late 90s, early 2000s, trimix, technical diving, rebreathers were still sort of new to the recreational market, and not many people were looking for anything beyond sort of 80 meters. There were wrecks being dived, below 100 meters in Asia and whatnot. But locally, no one really bothered because it's just no one wanted to go that deep.
I suppose there was a bit back then as well. There's that little bit of fear and apprehension about this new technology as well.
Yeah, correct. Because rebreathers, this is when the whole GUE, DIR strike wars were coming in, and everyone was saying, electronic rebreathers are going to kill you. training agencies didn't want to have a bar of any mixed gas stuff. Nitrox, I think, was maybe just coming in, accepted by some of the recreational agencies. So there was very big pushback against technical diving, and everyone thought technical divers were just a bunch of cowboys, liability for businesses and all that. So even like decompression tables, we couldn't get software for decompressions. We used to take, I remember, was a V Planner and M Planner back then. And used to combine different algorithms together into our own custom tables and jump in. It's like, how do you feel? Yeah, all right. How do you feel? Oh, yeah, I'm skin bent, or I've got a sore elbow. And so that was sort of self-experimentation, and that was still a lot in the infancy. But then we are sort of fortunate because at that time, I knew Richard really well because he was training me on some of the TDI courses when I started to do my decompression and trimix courses. And trimix is a mixed gas. We'll probably talk about this later on, so everyone knows what that is. But we were sort of fortunate that some of the, at the time, biggest guys in sort of exploration, like Dave Appley, Simon Mitchell, they were doing some amazing stuff. Like Dave was doing, solo 130-meter dives in Pierce Resurgence. Simon Mitchell was up in Brisbane just did the Cayugal in 178 meters. It was a record-breaking dive for deepest wreck in the world at the time. And he moved to Sydney as well. So everyone got interested when we sort of, Richard sent a bit of a wide email saying, hey, who's interested in doing this little idea? Everyone's like, oh yeah, sounds good. So we, created sort of all the core sort of guys that are doing a lot of the mixed gas stuff and started to say, okay, well, what are we going to do what's going to be our first target? We thought, we didn't have a name, by the way. At this stage, there was no such thing as Sydney Project. It's like just a bunch of mates. And we thought, okay, so what's our target? I thought, okay, so when spoke to Tim Smith and the Heritage Office and looked online, I thought, hold on a sec. HMAS Sydney, that was cuddled off Sydney somewhere. And because if people that know Sydney very well, just on the north side in North Sydney, next to Luna Park there is the bow of HMAS Sydney, and the mast is sitting of Bradley's Head. So that's actually come from the hulk of the main body of HMAS Sydney, one, which was cuddled off Sydney. So we thought, okay, well, that sounds like, pretty good target to start with. Let's see whether we can find out and maybe do our first dive on that. And suddenly people sort of started getting, at the time there was no social media. There was just the, your usual little blogs online and little chat rooms and all that. Divers was the thing back then. Everyone lived on it. If you're a diver, you lived on it. And people started getting a wine. They said, oh, yeah, those Sydney Project guys, we called it Sydney Project. The Sydney Project guys are doing some, deep dives. And we were diving a reef called the Peak just out of Botany Bay just to get our techniques. We were trying to put together, I was like, how we're going to use support divers. We were sort of, getting ideas from the guys who were doing stuff in the UK with the Lee Bishop and Carl Spencer and all those guys, the stuff they did on the Britannic. So I had a lot of inspiration from those guys. And we, thought, yeah, let's put together deco stations, bring support divers and all that. So we were practicing this, on the Peak in just over 100 meters of water there. There was an unfortunate incident with Jason McCatton where he had an incident on the rebreather and had to be evacuated. And obviously that was sort of came out to be rather public. So there was a bit of focus on what we were doing. And at the time, people started calling us the Sydney Project guys. Later, we found out the hulk of the Sydney was probably sank below 200 meters, just off the shelf somewhere. Yeah. So we thought, okay, well, but no sooner that sort of we realized that the Heritage Office came in because I was communicating with Tim Smith at the time, and he said, hey guys, CSIRO a couple of years back in 2001 found what they think was a wreck down Eden of Gabba Island, and they thought it might have been the SS Cumberland, which was a ship that sank by a German World War One mines from a radar. And so that became our first target. And yeah, that project was amazing because it turned out to be the Cumberland, and so it had quite a lot of media exposure, and it basically just went from there.
How deep was that one?
That was in 98 meters. 2002. We did that so that was about, it was a fairly deep dive back then, close to 100 meters. But the fact that it's got such a historical context, and there was a lot of focus on the story behind it. And I can sit for hours to tell you about the Cumberland by itself, because it is a very fascinating story. And so that was, really what set off and put a lot of focus on us, and gave us a bit of a springboard to sort of say, listen, we're not just a bunch of cowboys who have a death wish. We're actually doing this methodically and with a concept. And then Stewie Bell at the time, who used to run a dive shop so he used to have a dive shop of Sydney, and then he used to run a dive boat charter. He said, listen, if we guys are going to do this properly, why don't we incorporate this properly into an association? I was sort of against that. I'm thinking, we're not going to turn this into some dive club or whatever. We just want to go dive wrecks, the whole point. Because we said, look, if we're going to do this, we don't want it egos. We don't want people coming with any agendas, whether you're a DIR or diving pink fins or green fins or whatever. I don't care. Just as long as you come in and accept, what we're doing and contribute to the group. Happy days,
Yeah.
And and the funny thing was, we thought, okay, well, we knew that there was some targets out of Bermagui down the south coast. So 2004, Stewie decided, obviously a lot of people would have heard in the diving world of the SS Beagle, supposedly sank with gold coins that were being transported to Commonwealth Bank. There was supposed to be a safe with gold coins. So that was, the romantic sort of story of shipwreck with gold on it.
Yeah.
So we knew fishermen probably knew about most of these wrecks down there, but they would never share with any divers, because no divers would go in there initially. They'll go, hey, like, I'm a diver, big chest, I'm important. Where can you show me where the wreck is? The fisherman will look at you. It's like, bugger off. It's like, I don't want to deal with you and your ego. And that was the whole wreck diving mentality back then, because there was a lot of ego, especially if you're a female on a dive boat. Oh my God, I felt sorry for you, because it was just incredible.
Yeah.
And so Stewie grew a beard, went down there just to the Bermagui pub, just so he can blend in with the fishermen, put on a smelly shirt on, and just sat there and talked to the guys. And he basically went up and said, hey, boys, it's like, look, we've got a set of marks for this record. At the time was the William Dawes. Yeah. We've got this set of marks over here. We just want to go and have a look, see whether we can find this, see if there's anything down there, just, whether we can sound it by sound and not even diving. And the fisherman sort of like, oh yeah, this guy's all right. Sort of, he didn't go and say, oh, can you show me where this wreck is? It's like, just want to hire a charter. Can we just go for a scan? And Scuba rings me up and he goes, guess what? He goes, what? So I'm talking to these guys, asked them, can you guys give us a charter? They go, yeah, where do you want to go? Go have a look at this marks where it's supposed to be a wreck there. They go, oh yeah, we know where that is. We can take you straight there. And while you're there, would you like to dive the Beagle? I just like, sorry, repeat that again. Did you just say they told you they know where the Beagle is? They go, yeah, you guys, they knew all the time. I'm like, so instead of what we thought in 2004, we're going to go dive just the William Dawes. Yeah. We had 2 wrecks to dive down there. It was the Beagle. So on Saturday, we dived Dave Appley and myself, we dived the William Dawes. We were a little bit more careful back then, so we thought, it's a 140-meter dive. Let's just do one dive. We're just going to have a rest day the next day. Mm-hmm. So we put Kevin Oakby with Max Gleason at the time, because Max, he wrote the book about the Beagle and everything else. So we invited him to come along, and, said, look, have the privilege to be one of the first people to dive on it. So they dived it the next day. So we literally dived 2 virgin wrecks of historical significance in one weekend, And the fisherman was so blown away. I filmed video, and we came out on the dock, and the fisherman there's one guy sitting on the tractor just unloading tuna from a tuna boat, and we're showing him these photos that Mike Spencer was taking on the on the Bigger and stuff, and he's leaning over there and he goes, "Oh yeah, I can show you a couple more wrecks that we hooked nets on." You're like, bloody hell! It's like, this is just heaven. It's like,
so it's fair to say that the Sydney Chop project's kind of launched in a big way.
That was pretty much, it just took off from there. So that was early, mid-2000s. Literally, we just had down the south coast, with just wrecks popping up everywhere.
Amazing.
And it was just, absolutely incredible.
And so how did you get involved with the project then, Russ?
Mate, I got involved probably a lot later. Obviously, I think I was 9 years old when the Sydney project first started. I wasn't
making me
diving.
feel old, Russ.
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of rebreather diving at this point. So later on, this is probably about 2017, 2018, and I was sort of progressing through all the stages of deep rebreather diving, and I'd finished off my 100-meter course in Gilly T with a couple of guys there in Indo, and I sort of was thinking like, what's the next? I just finished the course and I was like, what's kind of like the next scope? And I heard of Sydney Project, and they were doing sort of some projects in that 100+ meter range. And I think that was always going to be where I wanted to go with my diving, sort of progress sort of deeper. Not to say that depth is important at all, but I was kind of looking sort of at what the next, I guess, challenge was. And and then got in contact with Samir. I think this was maybe 2018, maybe, and then went to Oztech probably a year after with you guys, and then we started playing for the William Doors. I think I did some dives with Samir in the group, almost like a tryout dive, and then got involved in a few of the projects down on the south coast in Bermuda. I think. The guys hadn't done that in a few years, and I think we were sort of trying to get Sydney Project doing a lot more of that more frequently. Also getting involved in photogrammetry and doing those deep wrecks with photogrammetry, and creating a bit more of a social media presence as well. So doing like YouTube videos, Instagram stuff as well to get the group more exposure. Yeah. And that was probably 2018, 2019. And then from there, we've just been with the group, and we had a pretty successful year that year, I believe. We did the William Doors, the Coast Farmer. We did a proper scan of the Tuncurry, I think, as well. We tried to look for the Helene. We did a few sort of little projects around that time, and managed to film some of it, post it on YouTube, and sort of got a bit more exposure. And then I think that was sort of my journey into Sydney Project, and I've been there ever since. So,
yeah, and so it seems.
And I mean, we've always encouraged, especially the younger generation, because the problem was with the older guys, they get married, have kids, then wives literally put the handcuffs on them and throw away the key and say, no more deep diving for you blokes.
Well, we also get grey in the beard.
Yes.
You're not far behind it.
No. And trust me, my knees feel, and my back feels it every time I climb back on the boat. Yeah. So having, Russ and some of the other guys that sort of came in, the sort of the younger generation, was great to kick off again, because again, it's so this type of diving, you need a group of people together. It's not something that 2 or just 3 people can do. You need a whole bunch of support. It's very logistically intensive. So and plus these guys bring in new knowledge and enthusiasm. I mean, I haven't done a dive course as far as I can remember. So you always read about new methodologies and all that stuff, but like Russ, a lot of the decompression planning that we did for all of these deep dives. Russ was fantastic to bring his knowledge into it. And, I sat down and like, right, okay, let's go this together. So there's none of this, I'll do it my way because I'm, 150 years old and you are 15 and I know more than you. It's actually the younger generation, these guys are very well sort of educated when it comes to this type of diving. They, even now, Russ is going to be teaching me a bit of rebreather side mount bailout diving because he's been doing it for a few years and I haven't done it. And
It's like teaching Grandpa how to use an iPhone for the first time.
I don't have comeback.
Perfectly timed.
He's carrying my gear in the next dive.
Oh dear. So, well, where did the idea for the Nemesis come from then?
Nemesis has been on the radar, I think, of any serious wreck diver for as long as I've been diving, because it's one of those. So you've got, certain mystery shipwrecks that everyone had focus on. So talk about the Centaur before that was found, when Simon Mitchell and Trevor Jackson were doing that stuff up in, everyone like, well, that's one of the holy grails of wreck diving. Then you had the midget sub, of Sydney. It was like, where was that? Like everyone searched for it and all that. And Nemesis is one of those because, there's been books written about it. And also there's been more bullshit spread about that, people said, yeah, we've been diving it and this and that, And so it's people been, always historically interested in finding the Nemesis. The whole, story of it being found recently just came out of the blue. Literally, it took everyone by surprise because no one really expected that it's going to be found anytime soon, even if it's in our lifetime. It literally, when it was found, it was by absolutely coincidence.
How was it found then?
So it was found by a company looking for lost shipping containers on the seafloor using sort of scanning technology. Yeah. And I think they found an anomaly off the coast of Wollongong, and I believe they approached Heritage and were like, hey, I think there's something here you might want to look at. It's not obviously a shipping container, something else. And I think when Heritage got involved, they had a pretty good idea of what it could be when they realised, I guess, the characteristics of the anomaly. I think they got involved with CSIRO as well.
Yeah, so Seascan, which is the company that was scanning for the containers, they so Heritage Office they contacted CSIRO, and which
CSIRO.
So CSIRO is the Australian scientific body that do a lot of it's a government body that do any kind of scientific research. So any scientist to do with anything at all, environmental, energy, marine. So they've got different branches. So they do a lot of that. So they've got a research center in Hobart, in Tasmania, which the MV Explorer is their research ship that goes all the way down to the Arctic, basically all around sort of Australian waters. And they do a lot of research, whether it's in deep water research or, but they sort of had a lot of interest in a bit of archaeology in shipwrecks. And we've actually been sort of involved with them fairly closely because, and this we'll talk about the Noongar, which is how this whole thing with the Nemesis sort of started for us. But I've got a good relations with the guys over there, and we've shared a few of the marks for them to run their ship and do some multibeam sonar scanning. They do this imaging with the sonars. And so they've been very active when it comes with the shipwrecks, which is fantastic because, government bodies, focus is on a lot of more scientific stuff, fish and fisheries and whatnot, geology, etc. But the fact that they're looking at shipwrecks and all that, for us as divers who doing this stuff, it's just absolutely invaluable what they bring in to the table. So they went out and did the scan for when the New South Wales Heritage Offence approached them. It was Brad Duncan and Tim Smith dealing with it, and so Brad Duncan if anyone's interested, it's online, you should be able to find it, but there's a full report they did on the Nemesis, on because they did a full multi-beam sonar scan. They put drop cameras down there, so they've got literally just a camera inside a big housing, and they just literally drag it with the ship along the bottom there. They've also put an ROV, which is a remotely operated vehicles attached to the ship. And from that video, they sent that stuff to the Curtin University. You've got Associate Professor Andrew Woods, who is very heavily involved with doing photogrammetry. Photogrammetry is where you build a 3D map of an object by stitching together photographs or videos.
Yeah.
So, and he's been very helpful to us as well with regards to a lot of the things we've been trying to do. So he built this beautiful little 3D model, which you can literally go online. It's online as well on Sketchfab. And you can literally just drag your mouse around it and spin it every way, upside down and sideways and all that. And so that was all from the scanning that the CSIRO did.
Right.
And so they, the fact that credit to them, the fact that they want to involve more with, groups like us, which we're recreational divers. We're not any kind of government organization or anything else. So it's big credit to them that the fact that they take the input from groups like us, and we bounce information from each other, and I think it's just a fresh way of approaching science, basically.
We did have a plan actually involved, so a couple of years prior to this dive, I think actually it was probably back in 2020, we were planning out on a different wreck, which is what Samir mentioned before, in the Noongar. I think we heard about this other wreck up on the off Southwest Rocks, off Smoky Cape, which is the Noongar in 180 metres. Noongar, yeah, MV Noongar. She sank, I think, in the 60s or the 50s.
1969.
1969, yep. And we started planning for that dive, I believe, on my living room floor back in 2020 to do this 180 metre dive. So this is towards probably like a year after we did a lot of the Bermuda stuff, and we were sort of in that flow. It was middle of COVID, but we're still on that sort of rolling effect from doing a successful year down in Bermuda. And I think back in 2023 or 2022, we tried to do the Noongar dive. It was just me and Samir, actually, just the two of us on a fishing charter with our whole support team. And we got out there and the currents were just too strong. It was like probably 4-knot currents. We lost the shot line. It was a 4-hour transit from Port Macquarie up to Southwest Rocks. I left at like 2 a.m. in the morning from Port Macquarie to go up there. Threw the shot line in, lost the shot line, 4 hours back, unsuccessful. And so we were still looking at doing the Noongar, and we were kind of like, all right, how can we achieve this? We started looking at more current modelling to predict currents and still planning it out. And then about a year later, the Nemesis got found, and then we essentially went, well, and that's another thing when we got approached to do it. And went, well, we've got this plan to do a 180 metre dive, and 160 metres is not too different. And we kind of copy and pasted that plan from Noongar into the Nemesis, and then started looking out how to achieve that dive. I sort of took the lead on it a little initially, looking at boats, organising the expedition, trying to get boats, and that was probably the biggest hurdle we faced. And I think, to be honest, weather and boats are always the biggest hurdles we face with these sort of dives.
Yeah.
Very few people are reluctant to take us out, because as soon as they hear it's deep diving and depths of 160 meters, all of a sudden legalities, liabilities get involved, like insurances get involved and all that. And like, obviously, I completely understand, people don't want to be liable if something goes wrong, and this is a dangerous activity. And so finding boats, I had like 3 or 4 boats lined up, and each of them got sort of called off for various reasons. And then Samir managed to find a boat in Wollongong, Aquila Charters, which were absolutely terrific. They accommodated us. And so we started planning this back end of 2024, early 2025. And then Aquila were happy to take us out. And then we did our first trip in about early June, I believe. And everyone got to Wollongong, and obviously all the logistics as well, getting the support team, getting everyone who's available to do this dive is another challenge. And so we got there in early June, and we're there at 4 a.m. in the morning, ready to go, and there was a strong marine wind warning that day. That got released by BOM pretty much that morning. Yeah. And we sort of had a conversation on the wharf and knowing whether we should go, and I think we decided that we're not going to do it. And just because of that, it's just unpredictable, and it's even when the conditions are great at the time, you have to look 10 hours ahead. Yeah, because that is the most dangerous part of the dive in that aspect, is when you're getting out of the water, when you have a full decompression load on your body, and having to get out in choppy seas can be quite challenging and quite, unhealthy for you if you get it wrong. Yeah. So we decided to call it there and then, and we kind of went back to Sydney, and then probably about a week and a half later, so I flew back to Victoria, me personally, and to spend time with family, and the conditions were pretty much perfect a week and a half later, and everyone was available except me. Yep. And I realised that I can't sort of let this escape. Let's do it. So by chance I left my dive gear in Sydney, and so I flew back to Sydney. We did the dive and had to fly back to Victoria after that. So yeah,
it's funny because within that explanation there, the first I knew about you guys doing this dive was when Russ messaged me and says, do you know anyone who's got a boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like Russ mentioned, as soon as people find out, at first they'll go, oh, yeah, we can do a charter and all that. So where do you guys want to go? As soon as they find out, they go, oh, about that. Yeah, I think I'm doing my hair, washing my hair next week. Yeah, correct. But the other thing is, one of the things actually Russ forgot to mention is the whole Noongar experience cost us $2,000 for the pleasure each as well. We paid for losing our shot line and sleepless day. But the one thing about what came out good from the Noongar experience is this whole CSIRO sort of connection. Yeah. Because we realized currents are going to be the biggest problem with these wrecks that are further out to sea, because they're going to be in an area. And when I spoke with Tim Smith and Brad Duncan about the Nemesis, and I asked them, I said, when you guys were there with the CSIRO, what's the currents were like? They said they were screaming. I'm like, here we go again. It's going to be another Noongar thing. So I thought, okay. So I spoke to CSIRO guys and I said, can you give us tools we can monitor currents? What's the best way? So they were brilliant. They gave us a whole bunch of satellite maps that gets updated sort of every couple of hours. And Russ sort of spoke to the hydrographic guys.
Meteorology guys. Yeah, meteorology guys.
And also there was a whole bunch of apps that I sort of got to learn to watch for currents, which are pretty accurate. I actually I remember I was working at the time because I work on the sports events during the summer, and I was on sort of traveling around Australia, and every single day from early November up to about end of or start of March, I was watching the current patterns over both Noongar and the Nemesis daily. I'll first wake up in the morning, log in and have a look. What's the current doing today? What's it doing today? And I actually noticed that over the Nemesis, it seems like it sits in a little protective pocket. More often than not, the current would miss it. And I'm like, surely that's not right. And I would compare it with some of the, the apps that show you the current. You put in the GPS and they say, and it's like, it's actually matching to what the satellite images are showing me. So I'm like, this might not be too bad, actually, it might be actually doable. So also the other thing was change the strategy with regards to the thickness of the line that we use for a shot line. Now, a shot line is basically a continuous line from the surface down to the bottom where the wreck is. On the bottom, it's going to have a big, so it's you got a big pinky, we call it, which is like a buoy that attaches down the rope all the way to the bottom, chain on the bottom, and then a big anchor. And then we attach a sacrificial weight. Normally, we go out to where the old railway lines being discarded.
Yep.
Scrap metal places. Actually got them from Canberra.
We're not pinching railroad tracks.
No.
Actual scrap metal places.
We did not cause that train to derail. It was not us.
Yeah.
But if you see a whole bunch of train tracks all over down the ocean, it's us.
Yeah.
So we literally use that just to get that line, because what happens in even the mild currents, the anchors tend to aquaplane.
Yeah.
So we just want to get down there really quickly. So we use that extra weight, which we will cut off on the way up. And but the line, interesting enough, is because we the deepest we did was like 135, 140 meters on the William Dawes. The line would be probably about 160 meters at the time I had.
Usually
something
about
like that.
10% is usually the rule of thumb.
Yeah, just because the line is not going to be completely straight. It's going to be on an angle and stuff, so you need to have a little bit more. But now with the deeper sites, we got to put a lot more line over there. And you'd be surprised, even just a rope with the current, it will have a lot of force on that rope. So the bigger diameter of the rope, the more, friction on it, the more
resistance.
force. So, resistance. And so I've actually cut down the line from 16 mil to 8 mil, literally half the diameter of the line. So that was another lesson from the Noongar that we sort of got, okay, if we're going to do this, let's change that. So I've changed a lot of these bits and pieces, added an extra, like for example, when the buoy disappeared underwater, there's no way for us to bring it back up because we couldn't hook it. And when the decky hooked it with a fish hook, the big, to catch,
like the big gaff kind of thing.
Yeah, the gaffer, he literally gaffed the thing, put a big hole in it, and it just sank. So I thought, okay, we need to put another line with a small little plastic buoy so we can, if we need to catch it with a gaff, we can do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So just little improvements, things like that, which helped us.
How long was the line then for the 160 dive?
I think it was at least
200
200 meters, yeah.
200.
Yeah.
And I will say on the lessons, we still are constantly learning. Like we had even some lessons learned on the day that we did the Nemesis, which we'll talk about later when we get into the actual dive. But there was a small problem we had when we initially tried to shot line the wreck, and even though we had probably less than a knot of current, we still had a drag off the wreck on the first attempt. And we actually implemented something that we'll probably implement now on future dives, that we changed pretty much on the fly, the procedure, how to set it up on that dive. But I forgot to add, we also did with the Nemesis, Samir and I went out on a colleague of ours' boat. This is probably like Feb or March, so a couple of months prior to the actual dive. And we did a bit of a recce of, which was quite absolutely beneficial. It was fantastic. There was two main objectives to that sort of recce that we did. One was to echo sounder the wreck, because the boat that I had organised had a slightly older echo sounder. We did a try dive on the Encounter in about Feb as well. The Encounter is a wreck in Sydney. It's about 75 metres deep. We went out and did that, and we did manage to find it on the echo sounder, but it was a little bit spotty. Like you you had to work hard to try and find it. And the encounter is flat, but I wasn't. That's also 75 meters. Nemesis is 160, so you're looking at literally over double the distance. And so I didn't have the greatest of confidence in finding the Nemesis on that echo sounder if the Nemesis was going to be flat as the encounter is. And for 160 meters of water, you want to get it right the first go. You're not going to go to 160 meters to dive sand. You want it to be pretty perfectly. You want to pretty much land on the wreck. It's dark. You're not going to search for it. You've got limited time. You're not going to get a reel out and try and look for it and spend all that time looking for a wreck. So the other objective was to go and echo sound the wreck on our colleague's boat, Martin, and see what it looked like on the echo sounder. And the second part was to have a look at the currents and use a measurement. So throwing in one of those pinpool buoys, have it drift for 15 minutes and measure the distance between the two marks. For anyone who doesn't know about how to measure the currents, if you use a boat, the boat can experience other effects from the wind and it can give you an inaccurate reading on what the currents are doing. So you try to use a small object that will float. Pimple buoy was perfect for that. So we threw the pimple buoy in, measured how far it drifted in 15 minutes, multiplied it by 4, and that gives you the distance in nautical miles, and therefore the distance in the speed in knots.
Yeah.
And so we use that data to compare what the software was predicting the currents to be, to see how accurate the software was in its prediction. And we realized that the software was pretty accurate. It was probably showing 0.1 of a difference, which is not much at all. And on that, I think it was showing 0.7 on the day as well, which is quite minimal. And we're like, right, so we've got the current right now is less than a knot, so which we know that being here on this dive site right now, we're not going to have. There is time of the year where the current is less than a knot. It's not like it's going to be 4 knots every single day of the year, which is what I think the Noongar is almost like. Yes. I'm not sure if the Noongar ever has a day that it's not ripping currents, but the Nemesis has days where it hasn't got massive current flow. The software is accurate to what it's showing, or somewhat accurate to what it's showing, and we can see the wreck on the echo sounder, and it is quite sort of proficient on the echo sounder. It rises up about 10 meters off the sea bottom, so we're not looking at a flat wreck. We've got a nice target to look at. And so those 3 things we were able to achieve from that recce, which was quite invaluable to us and quite beneficial to help us plan for our dive, which happened a few months later from that.
The other thing, and this might sound a little silly, but being on site just over the wreck.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Just to get a feel for the area.
Yeah.
I know it sounds a bit weird to say, but hold on a second.
No.
Isn't the ocean over here and over there, it's all the same? Just from the fact that you're leaving from whatever you're launching the boat and how long it takes you to get out there and all that, it's the just mental state just to be there, and rather than going to a place you've never been before and you sort of arrive and you sort of just want to get in the zone mentally.
Well, it gives you that bit of recognition, doesn't it?
It does,
You're starting to get a familiarity, even though it's a big body of water.
Yes.
Well, the other important safety factor I forgot as well was we had reception out there. So we did not think that we were going to have reception when we got out there. And
because it's 16K, isn't it?
No,
27
Ks, 14 nautical miles.
27K,
yeah. So quite a distance out. And we were like, okay, so if we haven't got reception, we're going to need satellite phones for medical emergencies. Like if someone comes up bent and we need a casevac via helicopter back to the nearest chamber, how are we going to communicate back to land?
Cool.
Yeah.
And so that was another safety aspect, was that we got out there and we had enough reception. I'm like, okay, I can phone back to mainland from here, which goes into our planning for worst case scenarios. And that was that day was quite invaluable, and I think it put Samir and I. It gave us a lot more confidence that we could achieve this dive.
Get you in the zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of safety, so we have a support crew, and I just got to say, they are literally the heartbeat of the operation.
Well, I was literally, that's the next question. I was going to say, how do you select and how do you find these people that are going to do the support, and try and, explain how important a role it is?
Well, we select them on looks. The better looking they are.
Yeah.
So that's why you two are the divers then.
Exactly.
Clearly. Yeah.
So with the support, support crew can be anyone. We actually encourage people to come be a support diver, even if you're an open water diver. As long as you're comfortable with blue water underneath you, you should be fine. But a lot of people over the years, we've always invited people to come along just to get a feel. If they want to get into any kind of technical diving, especially with wreck diving or whatever, we always say to people, listen, the way we learned is the fact that in the early days, we surrounded ourselves with the best of the best, I've had probably the best upbringing when it came to technical diving, because I just had learned from the guys who are doing, the biggest push dives back then. So if you want to come in without being ridiculed for your skills or anything like that, and just sit there and ask a ton of questions about equipment, about procedures, about anything, everyone is more than willing to help out and, share the information. So anyone can do that, but we do have our sort of core group of crazy people who would come out at 2 o'clock in the morning and listen to dive briefing, at 3 o'clock in the morning. So they literally, they will, basically we rely on them 100%, whether just kitting up, just putting the gear on the boat. You got to remember, boats, they're moving in the swell, and even in case of Nemesis, we had rather sloppy conditions. Having a couple of people hold on to you while you're putting stuff on without you rolling on your face on the deck. And also, just getting equipment in the water, helping with logistically just loading the boat, because there's so much gear. And then you've got in the water, they basically going to look after the safety, whether it's something on the surface that's happening while we're underwater, whether they will come down, take away, equipment that we don't need anymore, just so we can have a more relaxing decompression. And also, bring us things like we bring camel packs to drink water and stuff. So they literally, and in emergency, obviously, they're going to be taking care of everything. So the way our support crew works is we have a supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
The supervisor stays on the boat, never gets in the water. And the supervisor will have a sheet with all of our what logs, what time we get in the water, what time we're supposed to be stopping at particular depth in the dive. They will coordinate the support divers to jump in the water at certain times to check on us, and they will literally know everything. It's like a full schedule of what's happening. So they run the show. They will communicate with the skipper and the decky, because the skipper and the decky, they're not divers. They don't know what's going on. They will basically liaise with the support crew to tell them, okay, we need to do this or need to do that. So you couldn't do these type of dives without them. And gotta remember is they volunteer their time. They're not getting paid for this. Then they're doing all the hard work. We're the ones, enjoying ourselves down the water, down there, looking at things.
I think that's definitely a testament, and I'll echo what you've said as well about we cannot achieve these dives without support team. And I guess for any listeners who maybe not understand, I guess, the context and situation of these dives, these guys are coming out with us at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. They're doing the transit out. They're helping us gear up, get in the water, helping us with all the safety aspects. And they sit on the boat for 10 hours, just sit on the boat waiting for us to finish it up, and they don't even get to see the wreck.
Yeah.
And they don't get
seasick.
Yeah, getting seasick. Yeah, and like Samir said, they're just volunteers. They're not getting paid. So the support we get from our support team is invaluable for us to achieve this dive, and we cannot be more thankful for them when they come out to do these dives, and they are definitely part of one of the most important aspects of this team. Like our job is easy. We just go down and come back up. Like it's, I mean, like they're big dives, but they're the guys who are doing the hard work to help us achieve these dives, and having to sit in the boat in the cold or the sunshine or the rain or and getting seasick in whatever conditions. And then if something were to go wrong, they're the ones that are going to be helping us as well.
That's what they're there for.
Yeah, exactly right. So the level of support they provide us is invaluable.
Yeah. Hats off to them. Okay, let's talk about the actual dive day then.
Yeah, perfect.
So obviously, you've got all this equipment, got to get geared up, early doors. How to kind of phrase it, is it militarized, the routine, the timings, the getting in the water, etc., getting down to the bottom?
Yeah, so we decided to work back from when we wanted to be, I guess, on site, which was just after, I think we wanted to be on site at, I believe, 7:30, which is about, and it takes us an hour and a half to get out there. So leaving the wharf at 6 a.m, which means probably get in the wharf around 4:35 to load the boat and get out there. So the timings are quite strict, because you want to get out there as soon as you can, so you can lay the shot line and get diving, because you've got to look 6 hours, 7 hours ahead for your deco profile. And we didn't want to be getting out of the water too long after or before darkness. I think we ended up getting out of the water when it was dark, because of some delays, which we'll go in further on later on in the podcast. But we essentially worked back from when it was, I think sunset was at 5:30 roughly, and then
you don't want to be bopping around in the darkness, because from the safety aspect is obviously the support cannot see you. If you separate it from the compression station and all that, they're not going to be able, we've got lights and stuff, but it's just too dangerous to be bobbing around in the middle of the night.
Yeah, definitely. So we decided to leave the wharf at 6 a.m, on station at 7:30, and then begin the process of laying the shot line, setting up the decompression station, and then gearing up and getting in the water. And that takes, it might not sound like a whole lot, but it takes a long time. And getting everything right, because like I mentioned earlier, you want it to be perfect from the first go. And we ran into into an obstacle on that first attempt when we tried to lay the shot line. And so this is now probably 7:30, 8 o'clock. We're on the station. Do we want to go into getting the boat ready and leaving?
Yeah, I was going to say just so people understand when we talk about what it takes just to loading the boats and all that. Think about it is the way, because you can get very easily overwhelmed with how much stuff needs to be done in the day. So what I try to do is, just in my mind, I make it like little chunks of tasks. So, it's similar, and I might talk about what we do on decompression, but first thing I do is I say, okay, my first mission when I get out of bed is I just got to make sure I've got everything in the car, and I got to get to the site. All right, once I get to the wharf, first block is finished. Next block, I need to unload all of this gear, because I carry the bulk of all decompression gear, cylinders and all that. So everyone jumps and helps to unload it off my car. So and then load this stuff to the boat, and then lay everything in the boat and put it in the right place, because that's like playing a game of Tetris. So once this is done and you've got your spot and everything else, task number 2 is complete. Okay, next task. We now start selling out, going to sail to the sea. We're going out there, and I want to now lay out the decompression station. So a decompression station is basically a set of bars, set of ropes, a set of buoys, and literally all it does is it makes our life much more comfortable when we have to sit there for 6 hours coming up, to be able to just spread out, hold on to the bars, put, hang equipment, shark pods, you name it. It normally just, a set of bars and ropes that are wrapped together.
It looks like a trapeze is the best
I was going to say like a trapeze.
It looks like a trapeze,
So I would lay it out on the deck of the boat, just, connect everything together, and just, this is the next task. This is ready now, but when we get to the site, it's ready to be deployed. Yeah. So that's another sort of task, So now we've got all that laid out. You know, it's not a long drive. I think it's about an hour and a half to get there on the kilo.
Yeah, hour and a half to get out there. And mind you, so we're leaving before sunrise.
Yeah.
So we've left the wharf when it's dark.
Dark, yeah.
A little bit chilly in the air. This is the middle of winter. And we're transiting out there. And this is pretty much going through all the final preps. And you're kind of visualizing, preparing yourself to do this dive and just to be out on the dive site.
And then just quickly interrupt you. The sea was rather sloppy at this stage.
Yeah.
We knew that the wind was going to drop towards the end of the day, which was more important for us.
Yeah.
But at the start, there was a little bit of a sea, there was a bit of wind, and it was really choppy. So we're sort of getting out. It's like, oh my God, we're getting tossed around.
I will say it was probably a little bit sloppier than what we expected and what the like we had almost perfect conditions predicted.
Yeah.
I think it was like 1.1 meter and less than 10 knots, and it was probably a little bit sloppier. But as Samir said, we were expecting the wind to drop off, and that's one of the key aspects.
Yeah.
And so we knew that if we could deal with this now, it would only get better throughout the day.
So what you're saying is 5 minutes into leaving the dock is when Brit started throwing up.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And but yeah, we went through. So we left in darkness, got out there just after sunrise, which is what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to start as early as we can with light.
Yeah.
And so we got 7:30. We got to station. We start setting up the shot line. Now to set up the shot line, we'll go and scan the wreck with the echo sounder. And Bobby on Aquila Charters actually had a side scan, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had quite a lot of technology on the boat to give a really good picture. It was actually a phenomenal picture. You could see the wreck, but it's quite the bow and the stern of the wreck are collapsed, and only the superstructure is quite standing. So if you think of it, is pronounced, but it's it's almost like a pinnacle off the seabed. Okay. So there isn't a whole lot of wreck lengthways or widthways to put a successful shot on. So we did a few scans of that, and this is just getting like comfortability with the boat. So seeing how fast the boat goes over the wreck, seeing how it shows up on the echo sounder, and getting sort of a pattern of recognition on how to lay the shot line. So from there we start laying. And the other aspect is actually predicting what the current is doing at the time. And surprisingly, so in Australia, for any listeners who are not from Australia, the current on the east coast goes from north to south. This is called the Eastern Australian Current. And
counterclockwise.
Yep, correct. Yeah. So counterclockwise, north to south. And the current was going south-north, which was a little bit unusual for this location. But that's what we dealt with. And we predicted it was about less than a knot. So as predicted on the current technology. So we're happy with the conditions, and we start positioning the boat to lay the shot. And Bobby and I decided to sort of be on the wreck because I said, "Oh look, I don't think it's going to drift that much on the actual on the descent because we haven't got that much current. We've got, as Samir said, the anchor. We've got the accelerant. We should be like if we position on the wreck and we throw it in, it should get there and pretty much land where on the wreck itself. And so we threw it in, got it onto in the water. We did a few laps of it. I believe it was about probably 70 meters, 60 to 70 meters off the wreck. What we could see, so the Pimple Buoy is on the surface, and we know where the wreck is on the actual navigation chart.
Yep.
So we can see the distance between where we sit, because we position the boat next to the buoy, and we can see on the chart where the wreck is, and that distance was about 70 to 60 meters. So it's not great.
Yeah.
Well, you take into account for the angle of the rope.
Angle of the rope as well, yeah. So you've got to take that into account. And we're like, look, it's a 200-meter rope for a 160-meter dive. There's about 40 minutes, let's call it 40 or so meters of sort of slack in between those two distances. And so we're like, look, it's not the greatest, but it's not too bad. And then we start setting up the deco station, that trapeze system. And our process throughout the years, which have been successful in doing it, over the years, was to bring the Pimple Buoy off the main shot into the boat, and then connect up the deco station, the bottom of the deco station initially, and then start throwing the whole trapeze sort of in one bar at a time into the water as it unfolds.
Kind of an extension to the shot line.
Yeah, almost in a way, yeah. And then the last point of it is to connect the top of the trapeze onto the shot. So the trapeze is connected in wire 2 clips. One's on the bottom, one's the top.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, because sometimes people actually question this, and it's something we've actually used for the first time. And the reason being is, so if you put a crossover line to the main shot line, so you've got main shot line and you've got a crossover line that attaches to your decompression station. What happens with any kind of current, even a mild current, because you have those 2 buoys on the surface which the deco station is attached to, there is a lot more resistance onto them, so it will push the decompression station away from the shot line, and that crossover line will rise up.
Yeah.
It can get to the point where it can rise up all the way to the surface. So you literally cannot get onto the decompression station when you're coming up because it's on the surface. So one little concept we came up with is, why don't we attach another crossover line, just a detachable one, between the shot line and the decompression station to stop it from going away from each other. Now people say, but how then, when we come up, because as divers, we disconnect the line on the bottom, but what about the one on the top? That's when you got to have full trust in your support team. And we, say to them, look, once we get to this particular depth and you can count everyone's on the decompression station, release the line on the surface. So it's like, if there's a little bit of current, we can, manage it while we're on the, still stationary and attached to the, but as soon as you see us and confirm everyone's there, disconnect us and let us drift.
Yeah.
So it's something we've only just came up with this concept. And it worked well on this particular dive. So we're still experimenting with it, but it's so far so good.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
going to give you the freedom as well, isn't it? It's going to take all the pressure off if you're all of a sudden subjected to a much stronger current and you're on your deco station.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
At least if you're moving with it.
Yeah,
it's not
correct.
intentional,
Yep.
You know.
But another aspect of that top connection point, as Samir said, it is up to the support team to do that, which means that, and the dive supervisor has probably the best overall picture, I guess, at the time of what's happening once the divers are on the shot line. So obviously he or she may not know what's happening whilst we're on the bottom, but once we're all on the shot line and on the deco station, they've got the sort of situational awareness that, all the divers are there and the conditions on the surface have not changed, so we're safe to disconnect the deco station and let it go with the current and whatnot. So that's another aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
But we're up to the point where we've connected the deco station. So we brought that main shot into the boat. We've connected the deco station and have started to deploy the deco station. It's been deployed. It's sitting on the bottom. Now we're going to do a few laps of all the shot line and the deco station to figure out how we're still looking. And we realised that we're probably about 200 metres away now from the wreck.
Really?
Yeah, and we went, oh, no, this is too far now. Clearly something has gone wrong in the way that during that process of grabbing the deco station and deploying it on there, we've dragged the shot line off the wreck.
Yeah.
And so I think we're borderline happy with 60 to 70 metres, 200 metres, definitely not. We're not going to find the wreck. No. And it is a heart-wrenching feeling at this point because the time is ticking. Like the clock has started ages ago, and you're now having to waste all that time to bring all that gear back into the boat.
There's a lot of rope.
A lot of rope to bring it back in.
Yeah.
And then knead it up, make it neat again so you can deploy it.
Exactly. You've got to make sure it's in.
Yeah,
in the right structure.
And the weight.
All the weight is still attached to it.
Correct. Yeah. And so we brought it up, and it took so long to bring up the shot line because you got 200 meters of line. Now people might think, oh, you just kind of like bring up 200 meters of line hand by hand. It's not hand over hand. Like this weight is heavy, and you have to use the boat's propulsion to bring it up. And so we kind of hook the line into the boat, and then we drag it with another buoy attached to the rope. And as you drag it, that buoy moves along the rope and lifts up a lot of that weight off the ocean floor. And then as it's lifted up, it creates slack, and that you drag that slack in, so you're not having to work overly hard. And so, because remember, we've still got to dive, so we don't want to pre-work ourselves incredibly hard before this massive dive. And our support team are helping us do this, but we don't want to give the entire job to them, obviously. And so, exactly. So, it took us a long time to bring this 200 meters.
It took us an hour and a half just to get everything back
in,
and reset again to go again.
And this is an hour and a half just to be back to square one.
Yeah.
You've not achieved anything at this point. You've gotten to the dive site, but great, like you haven't even started anything yet. Yeah. So time is just ticking away. We've then decided, right, what we're going to do is we're going to position southwest of the wreck, because that current was going sort of northeast, and we're going to, as we throw it in, the current's going to slowly drag it onto the wreck, and that's a little bit of a half art, half science. You kind of just have to sort of guesstimate as how far away you're in a position. But Bobby and I kind of positioned. So Samir and Dave Apps were on the back deck, pretty much doing all the line handling, and Bobby and I are in the wheelhouse, kind of telling them when to throw it in. And so we positioned sort of southwest of the wreck this time to let it go with the current. We've thrown it in, and I think we're probably about 20 or 30 meters away from the wreck, so a lot better than the first time. I'm like, okay, happy with that. However, we've still got the deco station to deploy, and we don't want to run into exactly the same problem we had on the last attempt, which was we connect our deco station, and then all of a sudden we drag that hard work that we've just achieved with being 30 meters away, and we just waste that by dragging it off with the deco station. So we kind of came up with a method right there on the spot to, how about we just throw the entire deco station into the water, not attached, and we get poor Scott to swim the entire deco station with the weights attached to the shot line and clip it on, so that way there's as minimum resistance to because the shot line is the delicate part. Like we don't want to touch that at all. And I think at one point I actually got hooked onto one of the little anodes onto the boat, and I was like, oh no, it's going to drag. Here we go again. Scott did phenomenal effort on this. He had to drag the entire thing on the surface to the shot line. Yeah. Managed to clip it on, got everything clipped on, and then again we do a little check. And this is that sort of like nervous feeling, like, all right, how far away from the wreck, and still 30 meters or so away from the wreck. Like, okay, it hasn't moved. Relief. Yeah, sweet. All right, everyone was happy with that. You know, we were like, okay, this is a bit more comfortable, and we kind of got the word up from Bobby. We were like, right, if you get to the bottom, because we don't know how dark it's going to be. You probably see on the footage that it's quite a bit of an ambient light, but we're expecting pitch midnight black.
Well, effectively, you would expect 120 meters or deeper, no light from
correct.
above. Eh?
Oh yeah, I mean you can. I mean I've seen ambient light like on the William Doors, which is like in 135, 140 meters. When you get crystal clear water all the way to the surface.
Yeah.
Mind you, we had clear water all the way to the surface.
We were very, very fortunate, and we're definitely fortunate with that. But we don't know that. We're expecting pitch black. And I think Samir and I, John, all said, like, if we get to the bottom and if we're not on the wreck and we can't see the wreck from the shot line, we're not going to do a search for it. Yep. This is just ridiculous to do a snag line search for a wreck at 160 meters. Yeah. So we either have to be on the wreck or at least within visual range of the wreck. Yeah. And so we were happy with 30 meters, hoping that was close enough. And I don't think we we're going to get any closer, to be honest. Yeah. And that's the point where we started to gear up. And funny enough, so we started on the southwest side of the wreck, and where the shot line ended up was the northwest. So it had travelled the entire length of the wreck.
And the wreck is how long?
70 or so.
73 meters.
73 meters, yeah. So in that time, now I don't know how fast the shot line travels from 0 to 160, but I'd predict it'd be pretty quick, considering how heavy.
Quick correction, though, is the stern did snap off.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's somewhere, no one's found it yet. So it is a bit shorter. We don't know exactly because we haven't measured the whole thing exactly yet.
But
to be fair, for a rope with a bloody great weight on the end.
Yeah, it has travelled.
It's a good distance.
Let's call it probably like 70 or so, because it was off the wreck. So you probably did travel a good 70 or so meters from where we deployed it to, in the space of what I would consider 20, 30 seconds, maybe. That's how long it maybe would have taken.
Mind you, it's a fairly soft, muddy bottom down there. So I'm assuming for CQR anchor type, it sort of might have taken a bit of time for it to plow into the ground and find something a little bit more solid to hold on to.
Yeah. So, but once we had that all set up and it was looking pretty good, we started to gear up, and obviously you can imagine the amount of equipment that we need to put on ourselves, and then...
Well, we'll run through that in a second.
Yeah.
Back in the room. So when we're talking about you guys kitting up, you've got everything sorted and got your P-valves connected. What kind of, are you paint a picture for someone who's a non-techie, are you done it like a Christmas tree with all these tanks hanging off you or what?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think equipment consideration is incredibly important. So everything from rebreathers, I had 2 rebreathers on me, dry suit, 2 stages with the bottom gas and the second bottom gas, heated undergarments, backup lights, enough line to do 2 SMB deployments from quite a deep depth. I had a lost the word for it. It is EPIRB.
Yep.
An EPIRB that can go down. The EPIRB itself can't go down 200 meters, but the housing that it's in can.
Yep.
So if I had the absolute worst case scenario where I lost a rebreather, and I was completely isolated from the main shot with no support from the support divers, I could still finish my decompression, get to the surface, and then deploy an EPIRB and hopefully be rescued.
Get the heroes out.
Yeah, correct, exactly. So, but lights, scooters, dry suits, heated thermals, rebreathers, everything comes into effect. So you are completely riddled with gear.
And everyone sort of got their own little configuration. So John Wooden, he dives a GUE configured JJ rebreather. Mm-hmm. So they carry 7-liter tanks on the back of it, inverted upwards and all that. And so the way he manages his gases slightly different to the way, like myself, for example. So I am just on a single rebreather, and I'm carrying 4 tanks, 2 on each side of me, with different mixed gases. So for those who don't know, trimix we use is a combination of helium, nitrogen, and oxygen mix that are mixed for the appropriate depth. So each gas is breathed. So if a rebreather completely fails, if it's flooded or cannot be used at all, I will then go to a normal scuba tanks. In Russ's case, he's got a second rebreather that he can go to. So in this case, myself, John, and Dave Appley, we chose to go single rebreathers with tanks, and we can actually share the gas between us that we carry. So if someone needs a bit more, we can always give each other, because we're diving as a team, we're not diving as individuals. And so there is enough for us to bring 2 divers with complete rebreather failures, breathing open circuit or normal scuba, from all the way up to the decompression station, where we have more gas. So our procedures and protocols calls for you got to carry enough bailout gas that you can breathe all the way from the bottom, do your decompression stops to 30 meters. That's from when we have 40% nitrox, which is 40% oxygen mix, and then 100% mix at 6 meters. So we've got to make sure you get there, stay there at least for 5 minutes, enough gas to stay for 5 minutes, in case if you're separated, support guys can jump in the water with a spare line and spare gas that stays on the boat as well. So that's for separation.
Yeah, so that equipment you're carrying is to get you life sustaining until you can get to the depths where the
Correct.
support crew can meet you.
Correct.
Exactly right. And so to turn up with that as well, it's if anyone is sort of been thinking, oh, like 30 meters is still deep, like why is it not the whole way to the surface? If you were to carry enough bailout gas to get you from 160 to the surface for your entire 6 hours of deco, you would have more cylinders than probably a dive shop can supply you with, and too dangerous to carry, and also with that as well, there was probably enough gas to get 2 of the 3 of you guys. Because I had the second rebreather, which I could also pass on to someone if I needed to. I could disconnect it from myself and pass it on to someone else. And we also had Dave's other rebreather that he had on the boat in the absolute worst case scenario. So we definitely had enough redundant systems to get people back safely. But this is the nature of diving to 160 meters, is that you cannot carry enough gas to get yourself completely up to the surface from that depth.
Another consideration which I found on this particular dive, I'm going to change my little procedure, is, there's 2 things. Because I carry 4 tanks, I had to, you physically can't put 4 tanks on the boat, but you can probably stand up for about 30 seconds before your spine is being crushed by the weight of the gear.
Yeah.
So when we did the encounter test dives, and I remember the boat guys, I said, I'm ready to go. They said, yeah, no worries. I stood up, stood on the back of the boat. They go, no, we're not ready yet. We're getting the boat. I'm like, my feet are getting crushed here. Yeah. I'm like, I need to jump in the water. So I said, okay, in this dive, I'm just going to jump in with 2 tanks, and then I'm going to put the other 2 in the water.
Yep.
The problem is, even with half a knot of current, by the time you attach your cylinders and all that, you moved a fair distance from where the shot line is. Yep. So you have to do a long scooter along the surface just to get back and all that. So what I've done now to mitigate all that is to buy a second rebreather. So Russ's T-rib setup is so good that I've actually ordered a T-rib, and Russ is going to be teaching me on it.
Yeah, so I've the dive, I guess, inspired Samir to get the same setup as what I've got. Pretty much the same back mounted unit, the same side mount unit, and pretty much dive it exactly the same way I dive it. Yeah. And I guess for the rest of the guys who will probably still inspiring John and Dave to get their own T-Rebs and form a little T-Reb group here in Australia.
Dave is a legend who started the twin rebreather revolution back in the mid-90s. Yeah. So he's.
I think he was looking to potentially getting one as well. But I guess for those guys, they actually saw it in action, because I did have a rebreather failure on that dive, which we'll go into later. But they saw it actually work for the procedure that it did. Yeah. And how that worked, but a lot of gear.
And
so you're getting crushed feet and spine, and he's got 2 rebreathers and just sauntering along ready to go. Correct.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. So the other thing is, and we'll probably see that in a moment, is I've also got my camera set up on the scooter. Mm-hmm. So for these deep dives, I choose to use a GoPro. And the reason I do that is because I want to reduce the amount of drag I'm pushing through the water. Yeah. So my video lights, I've got float arms on the scooter. Mm-hmm. I've got my video lights. I've got my GoPro there in a 300-meter housing. And I can literally, it's the same setup that I use for photogrammetry as well. And it's just a lot easier to try than carry a big DSLR or anything like that, because of the amount of equipment. Yeah. But now that if I move to the second rebreather, it might help make it a little bit easier. I can now start thinking about maybe going a mirrorless camera for more sort of, bigger resolution.
Well, I might actually be selling a mirrorless camera with housing.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll see how many, drachmas we can.
$10 million.
Yeah. So, I think, so at this stage, I suppose we should, we sort of eventually we get to the shot line.
Yeah.
I
So
took
all
the
this prep.
longest.
Yeah. So Samir was first in the water.
Yeah.
And to give you some sort of concept of how the current is, Samir was first in the water and was the last person to get to the shot, because by the time he got his cylinders on and then had to scooter, I think he scooted for at least 10 to 15 minutes on the surface. Yeah, and the way I jump in is I jump in with one cylinder, both rebreathers, no scooter, and I quickly get to the boat, get my scooter, get my second cylinder, and then I sort of come off the boat so the boat can sort of move away safely, and I start gearing all my gear up. But even in that small process, it maybe takes a couple of minutes to get myself comfortable with both rebreathers and everything sitting where I want it to sit.
Yeah.
Even in that time, I had to scooter maybe for a few minutes as well on the surface at full speed on my scooter. And there's always a pro and con version. You can either, as Samir said, jump in with all your gear ready to go, but it's quite uncomfortable. You're hot. You're putting a lot of stress on your body before you even start the dive, or you can jump in with some of it and get more comfortable getting it set up properly, but then you sacrifice that by moving away from the current.
Yeah.
And I think over the years now, we've decided that 1 knot of current is our limit.
Yeah.
So anything more than that, we're going to get pushed too far away. I have done the encounter on 2 knots of current using exactly the same procedure. Got drifted a little bit further, but I still made it. But 1 knot of current is kind of like our sort of cut off. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so take us down then. Let's descend.
Yeah,
and if you can give a little bit of guidance on what you're doing with the gases and why you have to change on the gases, etc.
So we've probably got the videos to talk through the videos. That gives us a good perspective of what's happening.
Yeah. Which ones do you want to?
So I think this is with me about to come into the vision. So this Dev Appley there.
Yeah. So this is off my camera. So I'm filming off my Paralens. Yeah. So the Paralens camera is a small camera that's on the side of my mask, and it has the depth and temperature on the right. That's Samir that just come into the picture then.
So I've got 2 cylinders on either side. I've got I'm using carbon arms floats for the video lights, and because they're rated to 150 meters. Also, you'll notice that I've got the strobe attached to my chest, and it's already blinking. And the reason being is, once I get down to the bottom, I want to sort of maximize every second of time down there. So even just, turning on a strobe and stuff takes, a few seconds to do it at depth. And the other thing as well is, and we'll talk about when we get to the bottom, because of the depth involved, you get an effect, what's called HPNS. It's helium high pressure nervous syndrome, where the helium affects you by getting shakes. So you can feel it in your face, in your body, and your hands and all that. So if your hands are shaking, stuff like that, and you're trying to clip things off, it might take you a few moments to do it. So to mitigate for any lost time, turn everything on. Lights are on, my camera is on. I am ready to go. So as soon as I get there, I don't need to adjust anything. I just clip the strobe on and straight to the wreck.
Easiest way to think about HPNS, it's like for divers who have done the open water course, if they know what narcosis is, this is like helium's version of narcosis, but it happens around that 150 plus meter mark, and it has one is how fast you get to that depth, and 2 is how much helium you have at that depth.
And for those that aren't technical divers, why are we on helium?
So nitrogen is very narcotic gas at a certain depth. So there's 2 aspects to, say, normal air, compressed air. So when people say, how much oxygen you've got in your tank, that is wrong terminology. We don't breathe 100% oxygen in the water. Normal scuba recreational is just air, which consists of 21%.
Pause the video on this one, if that's right.
Do you want to pause that video for a second?
Yep. Thanks. Sorry, mate.
Yep. So recreational divers breathing normal compressed air, it consists of 21% oxygen, 79% nitrogen. So oxygen, we talk about in partial pressures, because when you put gases under pressure, they will act physiologically differently on your body. So if you're to breathe 100% oxygen, the partial pressure, so we at the moment at a partial pressure of 1 on the surface. 100% oxygen will become a partial pressure of 1.6 at 6 meters. 1.6 is a safe limit when it comes to diving with 100% oxygen. To reach 1.6 partial pressure of air, which consists of 21% oxygen, you reach that at 66 meters. So you can get down to 66 meters and still be safe with normal air. If you go beyond that limit of 1.6 of oxygen, what will happen is the oxygen will affect your nervous system and you can get convulsions. So you can get a convulsion while I'm sitting over here breathing high percentage of O2, or say like in the recuperation chamber under pressure. What happens is I will convulse. It's not going to kill me, but I'm going to lose consciousness. I'll still be fine because I'll wake up and I'm fine. But the problem underwater is once you lose consciousness, you drown.
Yeah.
And that's how people die when it comes to this type of accidents.
And what we're referring to here is oxygen toxicity.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we want to, the other aspect is nitrogen. Nitrogen becomes narcotic at depth. So it will affect every person differently. Someone might get really badly affected at 30 meters. Some affected a little bit deeper, just depending on your physiology. So nitrogen, when you say the narcotic, it's like, drinking half a bottle of whiskey and going down to 66 meters. You're not going to function. It's like driving a car drunk, But, you're trying to operate rebreathers and other electronic devices that are life support equipment. That's a dangerous aspect. So in order for us to reduce both the danger of oxygen and nitrogen, we have to add a different gas. So we need to reduce a percentage of each, but then we have to fill that space with something else. And we choose helium because helium is the second least narcotic gas. Hydrogen is the least narcotic gas we can use. And some of our friends have been experimenting with like ultra deep diving below 200 meters in caves with hydrogen, purely because helium, as we started to say, does have its own effect after 150 meters with HPNS, which gives you a lot of shakes. And a lot of the guys that do the ultra deep dives tend to get it really bad sometimes. So they started to experiment adding hydrogen, which is why some of these dives have been done by the guys in Peace Resurgence and all that.
There's that very good footage of Richard Harris's hands getting affected.
Well, that's what started it, because Craig Challen, he doesn't get affected by HPNS as much. He gets it, obviously, everyone does, but he's perfectly fine even at 240 meters. But Harry gets it so bad and so violent that he just cannot have any use of his hands. So that's why they experimented with going with hydrogen. So, and that's a reason why our mixes that we breathe, and also we will have different mixes for different depth, because you don't want to go from something that is helium-rich mix back to just air or something with a high percentage of oxygen, because you've got other physical aspects with the way the gas is coming in and out of your tissues, and it will create collisions, and you can create a whole lot of decompression problems that, we can talk about this separately, but so we want to reduce so that when we come back from a specific mix, we're doing a gradual little changes. We're not introducing a whole lot of oxygen or nitrogen back into the body, but rather go to a slightly leaner helium mix and so forth. And because helium is very thin gas, it will absorb and come out of your tissues a lot quicker than oxygen or nitrogen. So there's a whole lot of complications with that as well.
What this all means is there's a lot of calculations, a lot of data to prepare for when you're planning for a dive like this, and a lot of considerations. And I guess there isn't. You always have to compromise on something. So the more helium you have means less oxygen and less nitrogen, as Samir mentioned, but there's a greater risk of high pressure nervous syndrome. Your decompression's longer. There's always, you've got to sacrifice, I guess, something always. And so it's a balancing act. You've got to accept some risks while reducing the others. And so that takes a lot of it into deco planning.
So on the way down, like we've got on the footage,
Yep.
you're starting with relatively standard.
Yeah, so we're quite, because we're on the rebreathers, we only have one filler mix, which is the same as the bottom mix, that 5% oxygen, 85% helium mix.
Yep.
And the rebreather makes that mix, sort of that custom mix for oxygen on the entire dive.
So the computer within the CCR is actually doing that work for you.
Yeah, it uses 3 oxygen sensors to read what the partial pressure of oxygen is, and then just injects the pure oxygen from the rebreather into that. And then on the descent, you're sort of automatically adding the diluent, so that filler mix, through what's known as an automatic diluent valve. So as you breathe in and the counter lungs compress, it automatically adds that sort of filler gas on the way down. And so we don't have to worry as much about changing mixes on the way down, because on the rebreather sort of does it for you. But in the event of a rebreather failure and you have to come up, that's when you're going to be changing your mixes at certain depths. For this dive in particular, I planned it out to be that it was going to be easy to remember what those steps were when you had an emergency. And I made it that it followed like the technical diver career progression. So it was your 100 meters was the first switch or thereabouts, you're on your first eco stop. Your 60 meters, which is your mod 2 course. And then 45 meters, which is your mod 1 course. And then 30 meters, which is kind of like your advanced open water. And then from there it was 6 meters on Puro 2. At that point, you know when you're going to switch. Yeah. But you've got about 5 or so different mixes now. You've got the bottom mix, the one at 100, the one at 60, the one at 45, the one at 30, and the one at 6. So 6 different mixes. But with the way that I'm diving, which we see in the footage, I'm diving on dual rebreathers, which adds an entirely different complexity to this dive. And I have to manage 2 different rebreathers and 2 different loops at the same time. And there isn't, I guess, a silver bullet way to do this. It's very, I guess, experimental, for lack of a better term. There's not a whole lot of people doing this. And so there's been people who have done this for a long time, a lot longer than I've done it for. But there's not, I guess, the exact way to do it. And everyone's got their own sort of opinion on it. So you have to figure it out for yourself. And the reason why we've got the video sort of paused at 50 meters here on the dive is I'm doing a verification check on that second rebreather. So, I mean, I could technically take the rebreather down to the second rebreather down to 160 meters without checking it, and hope that it's not flooded or hasn't got a problem in it. But that's just kind of rolling the dice. But for myself, I'll do 3 verification checks on a dive like this: one at 50 meters, one at 100, and then one 150, or I say the bottom 160. And the reason why I do this is the descent is the most dangerous part for a second rebreather, because you're not breathing from it. And if that filler gas that's going through that ADV is somehow compromised or isolated, your rebreather will flood and it will essentially implode. Or if you switch to it at the wrong time, it will suck all the gas out of your lungs into the rebreather and give you a negative pulmonary immersion, which negative IPO, essentially what it is. And so I will do those 3 verification checks on the way down, which slows my descent down a little bit and adds complexity to it. But also I think they're quite crucial to do if you're going to dive a second rebreather.
Well, it's a confidence check as well, isn't it?
It is a confidence check.
Everything you're explaining there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to roll the dice.
No, definitely not. And when you're at 160 meters and you're taking a rebreather out of your mouth to switch to a second rebreather, and it's always an interesting feeling.
What happened to those cowboys?
Yeah, so you'll see on the footage from my POV footage there that you'll see the guys sort of go past me on the descent as I switch to the second loop, and then I'll sort of go past them on the descent, and it's almost like a leapfrog effect. But it takes about 30 seconds to a minute to do a verification check. And it took me probably a good solid 18 months of diving and just making those neural pathways for myself and doing those verification checks and figuring out the process of doing it. It's very process driven thing, and there's a certain way I do it, and I'll check my second computer for the cells that they're okay. I'll inject some of that diluent gas manually into the loop to make sure that there is quite a bit of gas into the loop when I switch to it. I'll remove the second loop from where it's clipped. I'll remove the second computer off my primary rebreather because that's sort of in the way when I switch to it. And then the last part is I'll remove the actual primary loop out of my mouth and switch to the second loop. And prior to that, I've also got to stow the scooter. So I've got the scooter in my hand. I can't do this with the scooter in my hand. I've got to clip the scooter off. And so I switch to the second rebreather, I do a few breaths from it, and then reverse that entire process. So it is a bit of a process, but it's also quite important. Because the last thing you want is to get to 160 meters. You have a problem with your main rebreather, and then your second rebreather is also gone, and you are completely on your own at that point. So
Should we continue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
That's the end of that clip. So just go on to the next one.
Yeah, go to the next one. The other thing to consider is we, as you can see, the water is so crystal clear here. As you're going down using the scooters, you obviously can get down very quickly, but you can only inject so much air into your dry suit, into your BCD. So occasionally I would be getting squeezed. So I'm like, oops, I got to quickly just stop just so I can get enough air into the suit.
And that adds more complexity when you've got a second rebreather as well, because you got to inject. Well, it doesn't normally by its own, but I'll top it up every now and then. So
and suit squeeze is a whole topic on itself.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so there's a lot of gas to add into a lot of different gas spaces.
So who's this is your
so I'm filming. You've got, I believe,
so myself right
is the
on
very
the bottom
bottom
there.
Yep.
Dave is behind me.
That's Dave there, who's in the foreground. Samir is in the background,
and John is
just behind me. John was, so we in between our teams. We're all diving as a four, but we decided that we were going to dive, I guess, in a sub team. So it was John and I, Samir and Dave. In the event that anything sort of went wrong, and that's how we kind of split it. So as I said before, I've now gone past Dave, but he'll go past me again when I do my second.
So he's now doing checks.
Or
are you just getting ahead?
I'm just getting ahead. Yeah, Dave's older and slow.
Once in a while, so I will stop so I can catch up on injecting gases and everything else, but also just double look behind me and check where the guys are. Because I just want to make sure no one's having any issues or bailing out or anything. Because at the end of the day, if someone bails out and all that, needs assistance, you just want to, you're not going to continue on if someone's got an issue.
I was going to say, was that what kind of communication systems, or were you just talking through your
hand signals, mostly hand signals,
Well, some people can talk very clearly through their mouthpiece. I mean, I speak 3 languages and I can't speak any of them properly. So through a mouthpiece, it ain't going to happen either.
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to understand Samir when he's got a rebreather in his mouth.
So I try not to. Well, I do still make noises, but they're just grunts.
He kind of grunts, and we've been diving with each other for years now, so we kind of understand what we're all thinking. Yeah. And so we're kind of able to, like when Samir grunts and groans at something and points at something, I know what I know what he's after.
And you think, oh, shut up.
Yeah, I think not to throw Dave under the bus, but he actually had his dry suit cylinder turned off at the very start of the dive, and that's why the dive starts just after I've turned it on. But sorry, Dave, but I figured out what he wanted just from him just grunting and pointing, and I was like, okay, gotcha. so we've kind of all in tune with each other. So this is 96 meters.
So it took us 8 minutes to. Yeah. Sorry, 8 minutes to get down
8 or
there.
9. Yeah.
8 minutes to get down there. Like I said, there was a little bit of current pretty much all the way to the bottom. So there's half a knot of current. It was slowed down a little bit probably towards the bottom, but there was still a little bit of current towards the bottom. So because I noticed that every time I would stop, I'm being pushed away from the line. So you're like, whoa, come back here. But as you can see, I mean, visibility is just absolutely crystal clear.
I think this is my second verification. Yeah, so this is my second verification there, just past 100 meters. So I've stopped to do my second check. And John, there's John on the right, and then Dave there on the left. So these guys have got ahead of me. Also, if anyone's looking at the temperature, that temperature gauge is a little bit inaccurate because the battery heats it up. It's not 20 degrees on the bottom.
It was 18.
Was it 18?
It was 18. It's pretty much 17 on the bottom, but it was 21 on Deco. It was, we sort of, because we dived this when there was still fairly warm water of Sydney, so it was nice. It was pleasant because that means a lot more comfortable on Deco.
So yeah, this is I think of that. Yep. So I've just finished my second verification, and clipped up and ready to go again. And John sort of turns around to make sure that I'll give him the okay. So this is getting to the point where we start sort of seeing the bottom pretty soon. And I don't know what it was like for you, Samir, but for me, I saw the anchor off the sand. Like I could see John's light reflecting off the sand, so I knew we were quite close. I could see the end of the anchor line, the end of the actual anchor in the sand, and I realised that we weren't on the wreck, which I was like, oh no, we're gonna have to do a look for it. But you can actually just see the wreck in the top left corner of that footage. That black silhouette, that's the actual shape of the wreck.
But also the first thing I saw when I got there was a field of coal.
Oh, okay.
And when I first looked down, I thought, there's no wreck. I can't see the wreck. But then I looked, I'm like, there is coal everywhere. I'm like, we got to be right near the wreck.
Which is what the Nemesis was, wasn't it?
It was carrying coal. Yep.
Yeah.
There was wreckage, a lot of wreckage got washed up on North Cronulla Beach, including there was a couple of lifeboats, including a big, massive box with the word Nemesis, and also the Haddad shipping written on some of the wreckage. About 9 days later, first body washed up on Cronulla Beach as well. Then there was 3 in total that got washed up. 2 were identified, 1 wasn't identified. And only just recently they found that they're buried in Wollongong cemetery, so where their graves are over there. So, so everyone thought the wreck might be somewhere between Cronulla Beach and maybe National Park. No one's ever thought about the fact that it might be further south, and that's exactly where it was found. So anyway, now we about to descend and see the wreck for the first time.
I was going to say, the first people to see it since it went down.
Yeah, yes. Definitely. Yeah. I think at one point here, probably a little bit further on.
So I'm just stopping over here now. If you see it, and turning around because I'm just about to attach the strobe. So I'd like to attach the strobe a little bit higher on the line so that you can always see it. Because if you're somewhere, obscured by the wreckage and stuff, you can at least look up and you can say, it's on the top there. It's not down the bottom, sort of thing.
You can see John's light reflecting there off the sand, and I think so there's the silhouette just on the left corner, and then I've just seen it then, and I got pretty excited by seeing this because I was like, oh wow, we've finally got it. And that is an undescribable feeling, just knowing that you've got there and you're about to go sort of explore the wreck. I might get Jock to pause it soon, so not just yet. There's a few things that happen here.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's switch to my video because this is from where we start. So this is the one.
Yep.
So this is from the camera mounted on my scooter. So the first thing you see there that we come across is, if you maybe just pause it just for a sec. So this is the derrick crane. All the rigging and stuff, that's all original. That's all the stuff that's on it. It's 120 years old. It's still got ropes and everything on it. The one thing I'm a little regret, and that's just because I didn't know, is right to my left, if I only just literally could have just swam about 5 meters, there's there's a port anchor over there. So I could have filmed that. I didn't realize I was that close to it. So I never, because, when you first time arrive there, you don't really know where you're going. But that 3D map scan that the CSIRO did really helped just to get an idea of the layout. So in my mind, I'm sort of going back to that, sort of thinking, okay, where's things are.
I can only imagine, though, when you get down there, you're at 160 meters, you've got this limited timeline to be there, and your eyes must be pinging all over the place, thinking, what the hell can I see now?
Definitely for me, mate. On that previous footage, where just as I got to the bottom, I started getting HPNS. So yeah, so for the boys, I think they said everyone experienced HPNS on this dive. For everyone else, they had the shakes. I had visual disturbance. So as I got to the bottom felt like it was sort of pulsing, like in my eyesight, and I felt like I was on the verge of vertigo. And I've had severe vertigo before on the encounter, so in 75, and that was quite sort of horrific and not a great experience.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, oh, no, I cannot get vertigo right now because this is going to be horrible and quite dangerous. And I felt my heart rate increase, and I stopped and took like 3 really deep breaths and sort of try to calm myself a little bit. And by that point, it kind of sort of dissipated pretty quickly, and I was like, okay, I'm pretty comfortable now. And luckily, we had that model that Samir we talked about earlier from Curtin University that we actually studied quite a bit about before we did this dive. So when we got there, we kind of knew exactly where we were. We were like, right, we're on the port bow. Yeah, let's start. And I think the first thing you see off the port bow is this derrick crane that you got in the background here.
Yeah. So the vertigo bit. I first experienced it only a couple of years ago when I started having to wear lenses on the water.
Yeah, right.
And jokingly, we were going across some open water. Buddy alongside me, and I could feel the vertigo. And as you say, the heart rate increases, the breathing increases, the vision is distorted.
Yep. And
I looked across to my buddy, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I just, I said, "I've got a little bit of the eyes." And he jokingly put his hand out as though to hold hands. And I just hooked onto his BC.
Yeah, definitely.
And it just stabilised that little bit. But it was the first time I experienced it, and I thought, Jesus Christ, this is horrible.
It can be quite frightening when it happens at depth, because you lose all sort of perception of where you are and any reference point, and all of a sudden you're kind of like spinning out into the abyss, and it's definitely not something you want to experience.
And the huge noticeable thing for me was the heart rate.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine when you're down at 160 and that heart rate goes up, and you've got to really think about how much air you're taking every time you breathe, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So we are now sort of past the derrick. Mind you, sort of try to stop and film things as I'm going along, but I've got absolutely limited time, so I'm trying to cover as much as I can. So we're now going along the decking over here, and I actually found there's still a little bit of wood around, even though there's not much. We can see there's a lot of coal everywhere, but there was some still decking there a little bit, but it mostly all been eaten by the worms. This is one of the winches over here that I was trying to get. You will see in a moment there was a big fish that's going to swim in. That's Russ and John in the background there. So this is more decking. There's a fish it's a cod that they live on here. When we looked at the CSIRO videos, they were teeming over there. They were absolutely everywhere. Oh, there it is. And then there was only one of them that I just filmed over here, past this winch. And I found out later from a fisherman that one guy went out there and caught 55 of them in one day. Oh. Because it's a public knowledge, the GPS marks for the wreck. So, and apparently they don't come back easily, because once you remove them from an area, they don't tend to come back, which is a bit sad. Yeah. You can see there's quite a bit of decking around here. So I'm just coming to mid-bridge, and I'm just about to go. What you're going to see is a couple of davit cradles. So I'm just sort of going to turn around. I'm just positioning myself to turn back towards the wreck. And they're pretty cool, because you don't see that often, especially on such old wrecks. So you can see there the two things are protruding. That's what's holding the lifeboats, the davit. And in the background, you're going to see in a second is I'm going right where the bridge is, and there's going to be the boiler is underneath this bridge area. And also you will see the remains of the funnel, and also the steam relief valves. So those two valves are sticking out there. They look a little bit like boilers, but they steam relief valves, which actually this is when they found out that the ship was a steam engine rather than whatever type of compound engine that they use. I'm not an expert in ship engines.
Yeah.
But that lost ropes are really nasty. I actually got caught up with my stage tanks on one of them. Just for a brief moment, I had to literally stop and like, whoa, don't do that. I don't have time to sit here and tangle myself. So I'm just now sort of going to along the starboard side. You'll see Russ over there.
That's John, and then that's
John.
me.
Yeah, there's you there.
That's
there's
me,
Russ.
yeah.
There's with a T-rib on the side.
Yeah.
Can't wait for mine to arrive. And so they're heading back now towards the bow. And I'm just telling you, there's actually a bit of current on the bottom. I'm actually, every time I stop, I was getting pushed sideways over there. So it wasn't, like you just stop and stand in one spot. No, you're just getting pushed. So it was a little bit hard work. And of course, you don't want to
Just something went past. There's a fat wobby sitting on the on a superstructure, which we all saw. No matter how deep a wreck is, you always find a wobbegong.
There's always wobbies.
There's always wobbies. They
sitting in the most awkward spot, like it literally was bent at 90-degree angle.
Yeah,
just
they
weird.
seem to want to like find wrecks as much as we do.
Yeah.
But you just saw then, so just putting the camera down straight down the funnel. So the boiler is underneath there. I know Russ looked from the other side of the bridge. You can see there's like some kind of a doorway or hatch. Very tempting to go in, but I couldn't go in with 4 cylinders on. He could probably go in with his.
I was very tempted, but this is the first time we dived in it, and I was on the far side of the wreck, in the stern with John, and at that point, we didn't have a great reference mark of how far we had travelled from the shot. And I remember looking at John and being like, right, it's time to, like, we looked at the bottom time and we had already probably hit halfway bottom, and we're like, right, it's time to go. Like, we haven't got long.
And how long did you set for your bottom time?
I think we had 9 minutes. 9 minutes in the bottom.
It ended up to be, about 9 minutes, because we were originally planned for 8. We did probably, but you can see we're coming back.
This is the strobe that you put on the
That's
shot.
right. Yeah. So Dave, he was back first over there, and what Dave was, because he sort of did a little shorter bottom time than us, and he was contemplating, do I cut the, because I gave him the job to cut the railway track. I said, Dave, you're going to be the one in here. But because we were still not on the line and he was there, he's like, do I cut it or not? Because if we cut it and then the thing starts dragging, it's going to be dangerous. But then you turn around, you saw all our lights coming back. So you're like, oh, okay, I can stay here just for another minute and just wait for the guys. And you'll see him in a second, he'll cut it, and there's a whole bunch of sort of silt to come up as he cuts it. And luckily the line didn't just take off or move or anything like that. But seeing that strobe, so ask any wreck diver diving in deep water, that is the best sight, is seeing that strobe. Because when you can know where the shot line is, you know where home is.
Definitely. You see it on my footage as well, where just after I told John to let's turn around and go home, because taking into effect, I'm like, right, we've got to go back to the front side of the wreck and then find the shot line from there. And as we pass over the superstructure, you can see the strobe quite clearly in the distance, and it's the biggest relief when you're in the furthest part on the wreck, down in the stern, and you see the strobe flashing. You're like, all right, that's home, and it's not too far away.
Yeah.
And we were coming back against currents. Actually, it was slow going. I felt like I was going very slow because when I was scootering back, I'm thinking, I was like, come on already. But it's like it's a fair distance and stuff. So I guess that's where the sort of the boring bit starts. Except Russ had a little bit more excitement than us.
Correct. Yeah. So. Joe, if we can go back to the original...
Probably go to the next video.
The one that we had before when we sort of skipped over it, because we'll probably look at it from my aspect, I guess.
Yeah.
So the one previous to this video, one previous to that. So, and then can we go back to where we stopped off before, like
right on the bottom?
Right on the bottom. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah, about there. Yep. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yep. Yep.
That's all right.
No dramas. Yeah, sweet. So this is what I've sort of experienced at HPNS, as we were discussing before. And I guess in my excitement, I've come off the shot line as Samir and the rest of the guys are putting that strobe on, and I've sort of started going towards the wreck and realised I'm actually not with my team, so I better sort of stop and look back. And I think at this point, I've got that sort of visual disturbance that I'm trying to fight through, and also realising that I'm sort of on my own a little bit on the wreck, and this is where I sort of turn around and look back at the team, and then you'll see me sort of see there. So that's all three of them there.
Yep.
And then I see everyone's sort of lights turn towards me, and I'm like, "Come on, guys, let's let's go." But no, they're doing a very important job. It was my fault that I left the shot line. I shouldn't have done that, but yeah. So everyone sort of turns around and we start going, and then you'll see. So this is in Samir's footage. That's that crane that's there on the bottom. So on the port bow of the wreck.
Yeah.
And you'll see me start scootering towards the bow. This is the bow here. This is collapsed, as you can see, and the superstructure is to the right of this, and which we'll go very shortly towards. And now. There's one thing that I haven't done that I said I would do at the start, which was do that third verification check at 160. And with everything that was going on, I completely forgot to do it. Forgot to do it, and you'll see me realise in a minute or two that I haven't done one yet, and it's like, oh, yep, I've still got to do that. I've got to make sure that the rebreather is still functioning, and I'd say this is maybe the most important verification check, because this is the one at 160 meters where you're switching to that second loop and making sure. And from here on, from here to the rest of the dive, I won't switch to it. So you see me stowing the scooter, and I also prepare the T-reb for the ascent. So if I need to depart quickly for whatever reason, the T-reb is ready to go, ready to depart the bottom and start venting itself. All that gas that I've put into the T-reb on the descent has to be vented somehow. When you're diving the primary rebreather on your back, you do it yourself by venting it through your mouth, like you just blow out the bubbles. With the second rebreather, it has to do it somehow, so it does it via a valve. And so I'm sort of doing that third verification check, and also getting it ready to depart if I need to. But yeah, you'll see. And then I think John's right behind me, and from Samir's footage, he's probably above me and to the left on top of the superstructure, filming all those various pieces, so above and to the left. And John and I start exploring towards the stern. So we're on the port side of the wreck at the moment, on the ocean floor, but on the port side. And then there's that verification check complete, and off we go.
Off we go.
Yep, off we go.
So that seriously cuts into your bottom time, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, it definitely does. Like I'll try and continue sort of moving slowly. You want to let the scooter do the work. You don't want to be working hard at this depth, but I'll continue to move slowly in the direction of travel. So I'm not just sitting there on the bottom. Yeah. I'm still getting some sort of footage that I can film of the wreck, and going into the direction that I'm still traveling in. And this is the stern. As you can see, it's collapsed, and I turn around. That's Samir's lights, I believe. And then this is that hatch that Samir was talking about that sort of leads into that engine room. That looks very enticing to go in. And there was a brief moment where I really considered doing it, but I decided against it.
Some nasty looking ropes in there.
Yeah, well. Just 2 rebreathers, 2 stages of the scooter. It just didn't. I wasn't really wanting to do that on this dive. It's
not the safest location to do it, is it?
No, and exactly right. Yeah, as you say, it's literally furthest from the shot line as you can get. So I don't really want to push it. And at this point, I looked at my time, and it was kind of halfway through, and I said, "Yep, John, let's go." Because in my mind, we're on the far side, and I don't really have a good reference mark for where the shot line is in terms of distance.
Yep.
But you'll see it in a very short moment. There you go. You can see it right there, and that was that's the biggest feeling of relief. And I think I slowed down for us at this point. I went, okay, it's not as far as I think it is. I'm just going to slow down and take it all in, and you can see that Wollongong there on the left that Samir filmed, and Samir is probably filming me right now from the right side to give another perspective of the footage.
That was a pretty good shot, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was a great shot. yeah, there's that.
Always try to make you look good, Ross.
He does. He does a very good job of it. Yeah. So this is looking down into the superstructure, and if anyone sees the 3D model, they'll see that the right side of this model is missing on the for some reason the ROV didn't get enough photos of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a huge hole over there.
Yeah, in the rendering, but I try to film a little bit of this side, so we can see it on the footage. This is now the starboard side, so we've just gone over the entire top of the wreck and going along the starboard side of it, back down to the sand.
I just want to add, we are in the sort of planning to do a photogrammetry session dives on this, so we can get a much more accurate map of the wreck.
Yeah, definitely. This is now towards the bow. Again, you can see the bows so collapsed entirely. This is the starboard side of the bow, and Samir is there in the background. John's right behind me, as always. He's making sure that I'm okay. And there's that Derek crane, and now at this point I'm like, where's Dave? And hoping that Dave would sort himself out, his least of anyone's probably concerns. But I was like, hey, where is Dave? And there he is. It's just, yeah. So at this point, we're all, I can see Simi returning, and it's our point to return as well. There's no, our bottom time is finished, and all of us are accounted for. And this is where we begin our 6-hour ascent. And for everyone else, they had a pretty comfortable time. This was the beginning of my problems, which we'll talk about very shortly.
Go to the next video, yeah. So after my one, yeah.
Yep. So at this point, on the descent, which we didn't touch on, there was a moment where one of my cells, so those 3 oxygen cells that I spoke about before, they monitor your partial pressure of oxygen, and it feeds that data into the rebreather, and for you to monitor, but also for your rebreather to function from. So the rebreather takes the average of all those 3 cells, and if that average is below the point at which you've told it to keep the oxygen level at, it will fire a solenoid to inject more oxygen into the system for you to breathe. One of those 3 cells that I had began to rise quite high and began to be what's known as voted out of the verification system. So the cell has gotten to the point where it's reading so much higher than the other 2 that the computer is not longer taking it into account. And so it creates a problem, because if you now have one cell that's no longer taken into account, you've kind of lost that. You're now relying on 2 cells instead of 3, so you start getting a bit of a problem. And what I didn't know was that initially this cell number 3 started to fail, and I was running on 2 cells, and that was creating a lot of ambiguity in my dive computer. And then eventually 3 hours into the dive, the second cell failed as well. And those 2 cells were from the same batch, and so I believe there's a bit of a potential fault in them, and it resulted me in diving a rebreather that had complete loss of electronics in the cells, and I did not know what my oxygen content was in that rebreather, and I had to switch to my second rebreather and carry on with the 3 hours of decompression. So you can see this is just shy of 2 hours. You can see that third cell, when it flickers to yellow, that is being voted out. So you can see that it's significantly lower. So initially it went high, and then after that it began to die. So that was the life and death cycle of that cell. Was it failed high initially for whatever reason, that chemical reaction in the cell potentially sped up the process of it, and then it began to fail low. So you can see now it's quite significantly lower than the other 2.
Yeah.
What we can also see is that you can see that second cell, that 1.55. So there's 1.35 is cell number 1, 1.55 is cell number 2, 1.00 is cell number 3. So cell number 3 is now dying. Cell number 2 has now done almost exactly the same process that cell number 3 did. So it has failed high, so it's going to 1.55. And then it will also eventually die. And there is potentially some footage later on, maybe not, that it shows my computer entirely like blinking and flashing at me saying that I've lost all the cells. With Dave, we did some, Dave's a very smart, intelligent guy, particularly with marine electrical engineering. And we did some tests on it, and we've realized that cells 2 and 3 were completely dead. Cell number 1, which you can see as 1.35, that is the most accurate cell, and that's probably what the actual content of my rebreather oxygen is. Mm-hmm. And so you can see it's still maintaining that 1.35, but cell number 2 has started to read high, and it too will die eventually, where I had complete loss of oxygen sensors in that rebreather, and that resulted in me switching to my second system, which worked completely fine.
Awesome. And I suppose something like that could be easily missed as well.
Yeah.
If you're not really, paying attention.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. You have to really constantly pay attention to those cells and understand what they're doing at all times during the dive.
And speaking of partial pressures, and just a little bit of additional information for anyone interested. So there's concept sort of came in, I don't know, 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, with gas densities. So when you, a lot of divers started to do those extra deep dives, the combination of gases that we use, suddenly the thickness, the density that you breathing at depth became an issue because your body is working a lot harder, and it created sort of physiological issues with decompression. So the idea was you chose mixes that it's sort of calculated in milligrams or some kind of...
grams per litre.
Grams per litre, there you go. So we choose mixes that are less than 6 grams per litre. In this case, I think our plan was like 5.5 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so we run our set point rather than traditional, which is 1.3. A lot of people do normally. We run at 1. And then as we leave the bottom, literally the moment you start leaving the bottom, we switch to 1.3 so that we're now, in decompression mode, and we want to put a little bit richer oxygen gas into the loop. So little consideration when it comes to deeper dives is suddenly a lot of people never looked at gas densities, but it's something that we look at. And you wonder, sometimes you look at the plan, why are you on 1 and then you're on 1.3 sort of thing. But then at 21
18 meter, we switched to 1.4, so even slightly higher. Yeah. And as Samir alluded to as well, it's all those little considerations, risk factors, pros and cons. So like that, sacrifice something. So, getting less oxygen on the bottom, slightly high, it actually doesn't change your deco that much at all. I think it adds like a minute or 2 extra, which we're more than happy with after 6 hours. Yeah. An extra minute, there's nothing. Yeah. But you're also now reducing that, gas density and it gives you a little bit of extra fat if there was a high O2 problem. Gives you a little bit of extra fat. But
and that additional oxygen running through your system is actually attaching to the blood cells and assisting in the off-gassing and the deco.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly right. So it's so that extra oxygen is because you've got extra oxygen, it means you have less inert gas. Yeah. And if you have less inert gas, it means your decompression is faster. You're off-gassing faster. Yeah. Those inert bubbles that are in your tissues and then in your blood. Yeah. And the study that Samir was talking about with that gas density for the guys, I guess, who are interested or are more technical diving, I guess, orientated, but haven't seen it before. I believe Summer Mitchell did the study, and you can find it on Google if you just Google like gas density rebreathers, and they found that 6.2 was that absolute maximum. It's quite interesting, that study, because I think it was a number of people were on exercise bikes, and they were getting them to do exercise on various gas densities, and they found that after 6.2, the failure rate of CO2, like respiratory CO2 failure, was like so high. Like I think half the candidates failed it after 6.2.
Pete Measley was one of the test subjects, so if he survived, we all will survive.
Yeah,
love you, Pete.
if you're fitter than Pete, you'll be fine. Yeah. So, but yeah.
But
Well,
now,
he's got hardcore blood. It's wine, red wine.
yes,
Yeah.
the cheeky reds that he keeps on drinking, the cheeky
Correct.
Merlot.
Yeah.
No, it's Capsav, I think. It's Shiraz, sorry.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get to the fun bit over here. So
Yeah.
while Russ finished dying of his deca with his failed rebreathers,
Yeah.
so you decided to watch the Titanic in
Yeah.
your little underwater case.
So yeah, we had this planned obviously before all the problems arose on the computer on the rebreather. But I'll give it an underwater phone case, which I've actually bought from the guy that gave it to me, Adam from Foster Dive Centre. I got it from him. So it can take really like any smartphone. You just got to change the cradle inside of it.
Is it a dive Volk?
It is a dive Volk, yeah. So this could go down to 60 meters. It's got a fluid sort of screen protector on it, so you can actually use your phone underwater. You can even take photos and stuff with it. But you can watch movies that you've previously downloaded, and I could even catch up on all my like texts and SMS and Facebook notifications. Not that I had any reception down there, but I saw like missed calls and stuff that I had received.
You know, I said about the young blokes coming through, very educated, very knowledgeable, but bloody hell, you can't take those bad habits away.
If you just, you can just see there on the left of the computer, direct your eye, just like a second or a couple of frames before, one later. It had like a reverting failed on the there you go.
Oh, failed.
Yeah, so you can see just there on the left. This is my computer. This is now a few like past the point where that system has completely failed, and it was just constantly alarming in my face, telling me that I had complete failure on the rebreather.
And you're lucky not on an inspo because you would have been buzzing for 6 hours.
I think I just turned that computer around and just refused to look at it. I was already off the rebreather anyway. By that point, I wasn't breathing from it. I didn't need to look at it, so I just turned it around and let it face the other direction. It's not doing anything for me.
I've had enough for you.
Yeah, correct.
I used to turn off the inspo completely, all the electronics on that 6 meters because I was getting looks and knives coming out to get stabbed by the other people.
I did a trip to Truck Lagoon recently with a guy on an inspo. You could hear him on the wreck wherever he was by the computer. Like, oh, where's that guy? Oh, he's over there. You could hear it.
No, the best part, and this was first for me, is Ross is watching the movie, and then he calls me. I'm like, oh, what are you going to show me there? Something good. It better be something good. Turn around there. So if anyone, if you haven't seen Titanic, there's got to be something wrong with you. But there's Kate Winslet lying on the couch, and Leonardo is drawing her, and she is in rather undressed state. So I got fairly excited the fact that I got to see some nudity underwater.
Probably a first on a dive like this. Yeah. But I thought, what better movie to watch for a wreck dive than probably the most famous shipwreck of all time, which is the Titanic. And to be honest, this is probably one of my favourite movies, Titanic.
Can't believe you just said that.
I know.
Yeah, man, that's a great movie.
Is it up there with Top Gun as well, is it?
Oh, no, I'm not in the Air Force like you, mate. Yeah. But to be fair, this maybe probably potentially is what inspired to start diving shipwrecks.
Really?
I reckon this film. So, I thought definitely what better film to watch.
I'm actually going to give you a little bit of a present at some point, probably next week at the dive show, whatever. I noticed you got fingerless gloves on there, so you might get a bit chilly.
Yeah. No. So if you, I did keep the fingerless gloves on. If anyone saw it at the start of the footage on my scooter, I've got normal gloves strapped in there. Yeah. I like to keep the fingerless so that I've got full dexterity on all the rebreather switching on the way down. Oh yeah. Yep. So I like to have that dexterity so I can feel and unclip each of the rebreathers as I need to, and then I'll normally switch to the normal gloves on deco for extra warmth where I don't need that dexterity anymore. Yeah. But I decided it was actually quite warm and I didn't need to switch to those other gloves, and I just kept them in the scooter. But you will see it; they're tucked into when I shot the scooter. They're kind of flapping around.
And speaking of thermal considerations, so pretty much all of us diving the Santee heated undersuits.
Yeah.
And they are brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. Steve Fordyce, who is another electrical genius,
Yeah.
built me this absolutely monster battery pack that literally lasted the whole the whole deca. And originally he said, might last 3 hours or something, and like it's lasted pretty much the whole 6 hours.
Brilliant.
My
I had to
heating,
donate it to us.
my heating system failed, which we sort of I use underwater light too. Nothing wrong with their products; it's quite good. But there was a fault in this, which we knew about before the dive. And Damien, who's the ambassador here for Australia, lent me his, thankfully, because mine had the same fault. And he said this it will probably break in the same way, which has now been fixed. But he said it will probably go in the same way shortly. But this will at least get you through the dive. And it got me through pretty much all of it for the last hour, where I switched back to it, and I had ran out of that system. Such a borrow Samir's. I asked him if he was cold, and he was like, "No, I'm good." And I went, "Can I borrow you?" So we were connected together via this electrical system, and luckily we kept with the same deco schedule, so we were the last bit to exit the water together. And for anyone who hasn't dived under heated undergarments, they're absolutely fantastic. But as soon as you turn them off, you feel
Get
it.
really cold.
Yeah, it just, and to be honest, like it's almost better if you didn't have them on at the start, because you feel that heat just dissipate almost instantly. Like, oh, where did that go? I feel so much colder.
Well, I tend to try to put it on as sort of not when you start to get really cold and all that, but when it starts to get a bit uncomfortable. So I would have, middle of winter, I'm a wuss when it comes to cold water, but because it was like 21 degrees over there on Deca, I lasted probably a good 2.5 hours without turning it on and stuff. Yeah. So that's why it lasted to the end, because at the end, then I started to get chilly. I thought, okay, turn it on slowly. And then, the end of Deca, you're putting it on to the highest setting of thing. But Russ is, it's a double-edged sword. So you get used to the heat. And then if you lose it, you feel it.
You feel it.
Well, I'm the same. I've got a Venture Heat vest. And, it's got three levels of settings. So I'll leave it off as long as possible.
Yeah, you almost have to ration it.
You want to keep. I just want a little bit for when you get back on the boat.
And for us, obviously, heat during decompression is one of those considerations for deco. You want to be warm to off gas as much, gas out of your system. So you do have to ration it a little bit to conserve it for the end portion of the dive. And for anyone who's like, 20 degrees, 21 is quite warm. Remember, this is 6 hours where you're not moving, you're just sitting still in the current. So even if you do, because we're not just running a heated, undersuit, we've got quite a lot of thermals underneath us that are producing passive heat in a lot of the dive. But even still, with even all those thermals and the dry suit and the water being that warm, after 6 hours, it does get cold regardless.
And also another consideration is before the dive, because you've got so much undergarments, and if you've got sun or even in the warmer sort of time of the year, you want to avoid sweating profusely, because if you sweat and everything is soaking wet underneath, you're going to get very cold because it's already wet. So you need to, your support crew there, try and put buckets of water on top of your head and all that, try to stop you from sweating.
And also condensation, obviously, that happens inside the dry suit. That you're quite warm inside your colder water. And it's going to produce more moisture inside the suit, and it's just going to get...
I just remember when you mentioned your vest. I used to wear a thermulation vest.
Exactly the same concept.
Same thing. We did a trip to the Great Lakes in Lake Huron in the US. And on the first dive, and this is 4-degree water, you use dry gloves and all that, and they use a remote control, the controller, which I just, attached to myself. Come up from the first dive and still getting used to, after not wearing dry gloves for a long time, completely a muppet with no dexterity, no nothing. Went to remove a stage, instead unclipped the remote and let it go. And I saw it go down, and I just had a nightmare. I thought, this is the first dive of the trip, and I'm just losing the remote, going down back to about 45 meters. I told the guys, can you drop a line quickly down? So we're in the lake, there's no current or nothing. And I had to go all the way down back to the 45 meters. Luckily, it just sitting above the mud.
Yeah.
The clip sank in the mud and they're just sitting there. The relief, because we're still on, I could see the LED. I'm like, the relief. Oh my God, it's I found it.
Well, nice little segue there. Relief, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like when you actually got back to the surface? Did you all come up together, all four?
No, so I don't know how Dave got back up so fast. Funny enough,
Dave can walk on the water.
Yeah, his P valve failed, which he found out when he tried to go for a P, and he held on for his P for the rest of Deco, which I don't know how he did. But apparently when he got back on the boat, he was like, get me out of this dry suit right now. But he flew through Deco. I think because he had a slightly shorter bottom time. You got to remember, like, a minute adds, like, I can't remember how long it adds, but at least probably like an hour or so. It adds to your bottom time. So even if he had, a minute or two less than us, he would have probably had like a couple of hours less than Deco. Yeah. But he was first in the boat. And then John finished probably maybe half an hour before us. Mm-hmm. And then Samir and I were last in the boat, and we
popped up in darkness.
Yeah, we came up after sunset, and the dive doesn't finish there. Like, that's also, and you're surfacing. It's dark. You've got the floodlights off the boat on you, and you're trying to unclip all your gear and remove it and get it back on the boat. And we've got thousands of dollars worth of gear that we don't want to sink to 100 because I'm not getting it. Like, there is no chance in hell that I can go get that. So we're having to unclip, and a lot of, like, some of this gear is borrowed too. It's not even, it's mine. Like, that Volt case wasn't mine. One of the batteries that I was using wasn't mine. And so we're having to sort of gently unclip this and pass it to our support crew who are, helping with everything, and then get ourselves back onto the boat safely without getting a bend after this whole time.
Just add to that, so Dave Apps, because it's a fishing boat, it's got extremely high sidewalls.
Yep.
Their ladder that they were using was just a normal Bunnings ladder, just in case if a fisherman falls in the water, they can come So there was no ladder. Yeah. So Dave basically built a ladder from his boat with an extra attachment to it, and it worked brilliantly.
It did, yeah. It was fantastic. He just kind of like jollied it up together, put it in the back of his flatbed truck, and just brought it along. It's just crazy.
If you want to build something like that, he's incredible to do it.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but we came up to the Samir and I came up to the surface together, and we had a lot of help from the support crew getting our rebreathers and scooters and everything back onto the boat, and which was great. And to do that in the darkness and having to like unclip little things, and at this point we're also bringing up camel packs and extra gear that we've collected up on the way up. And so but once we're on the surface, and I would say once we're all on the boat safely and we were like out of our gear, that's when was kind of like, all right, we've made it.
Whoops and cheers.
Yeah.
Well, my mind turns into looking at the deck. I need to pack all this rope and everything before we get back to the port, because I need to put all this stuff back in the car. So my mind goes into the mode of, all right, let's start packing things up. And it's funny, for me, who's filming the videos and thinking about getting shots and all that, I turned to Zach, who I gave him, some of the cameras to get shots on the surface. I'm like, oh, did you get some shots of us, climbing up the boat in the darkness, this and that? He goes, mate, because we're just happy to make sure the deco station is still visual and keeping a light on it and all that. And you guys are back up. I'm like,
you almost need a dedicated cameraman for a trip like this, where their whole job is to do, because like Samir said, there's a lot of work going on on the boat.
Any volunteers, please come along. We definitely need some good videographers.
Like a media crew.
We'll feed you and give
you can sit around for 10 hours. 10 hours, have some fun.
Yeah, exactly right. But the other part, actually, speaking of Stephen, before with his battery that he built, he also built this sound system that I borrowed off him as well, which he does a lot of long cave dives in Tasmania. Yeah. And something to keep him company in those trips is this sort of sound system.
Scott Wyatt, one of the support diver.
So this is a little underwater speaker, which you can just hear. You can just skip songs on it and pause songs, and works quite well.
And that long black thing hanging in the background there,
Oh, yeah, there's a
that's
shark
the shark pod.
Yeah, that long line. Yeah.
You don't want to touch this while it's on underwater because you'll be doing a
Zapped,
funky chicken dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, I mean, Stephen, he's got to have a shout out, hasn't he? Because he's got his own company for engineering.
Yeah,
particularly.
TFM Engineering.
TFM.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, great cave diver, great mate, great all-round bloke who.
He actually even supplied the shears that Dave cut
there you go.
the short line with,
Yeah.
the depth accelerant with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will cut through anything, that thing.
There was a second battery that I had with me for my heated suit, which I pretty much bled dry. Was supplied by him.
Yeah.
He gave me another battery that I could feed my dry suit with.
Yeah.
Because I knew that my one wouldn't last the entire 6 hours, so I wanted two. But yeah, so thank you to Stephen.
Yeah.
So the amusing thing was we left in the darkness from the Wollongong Harbour in the morning, and we arrived back in darkness.
So you just lost a day.
And it was a
literally.
It was a second game of State of Origin, which while we were packing, I totally missed it. But the other consideration was, so Russ and Brett stayed in Wollongong that night. Dave lives in Jervis Bay, so he just drove straight there. John and myself, to come back to Sydney, one thing you got to be mindful of coming from Wollongong is Mount Ousley. So as a diver, you don't want to, even just after normal dive, you don't want to just go straight up Bulleye Pass to get back there because people got bent just even doing recreational dives. So we, drove through the national park, and there was roadworks and all that. John, I don't know how I made it home because I think I was half asleep by that stage. Yeah. But John decided to stop and be sensible and actually sleep a few hours in the car. I drove all the way home. Don't do that, kids. It wasn't advisable.
Sounds like a hell of a long day.
Yeah. It was definitely a long day. I mean, I washed all the gear on the wharf when we finished. And I wanted to get it set up because I went back to work the next day. Yeah. So we left Wollongong early morning. So I wanted all my gear sort of washed and deserviced that night because there's a lot of expensive gear and you want to take good care of it. So
I think I started to wash everything at about 3 p.m. the next day.
Yeah.
Could do actually.
Correct. Yeah. I think by the time we finished, it was probably by the time I got into the hotel, I think it was like 11, 12 p.m.
Yeah.
11 p.m. So almost midnight. By the time we finished going from 4 o'clock in the morning all the way to midnight. So pretty long day.
It's physically exhausting. This type of diving is physically exhausting and draining on sleep and all that. Yeah. But
you're running on adrenaline by the end of it. I think you kind of like you're running on adrenaline at the start of it. And then by the end of it, you're running on the excitement of being able to achieve it and getting home, like getting out of it safely and everything. So.
Now, the other part is, and to mention is why we do this. There is a concept. So there was that came up in the early 80s in the US from a little bit, and I'm going to talk about this next week at the Go Dive show. There was famous archaeologists in the US that did a lot of stuff all over the world, even the SS Arizona and all that. And there was there's a concept that was called anthropology in archaeology. And what it is basically they were talking about, so land archaeologists will go uncover and do archaeology on land because we want to learn about how people lived in the past. What did they eat? What was their culture like? With shipwrecks, traditionally, wreck divers, they just look at, it's a shipwreck, it's a playground, it's, stuff to pick up from there and whatnot. A little bit of history. But what I'm glad that, over the years, sort of the way people look at shipwrecks and the way people now look at the history of it, is you start looking from the people's perspective. Now, I've had a lot of interactions since we did stuff in Bermagui with relatives over there. I've dealt with a lot of relatives, and I've completely changed my mind with the way I view these sites, because they can be graves, they can be archaeological sites. There's a lot of history, but also it's a site where people worked, lived, and died. So whether it's a grave or whether it's a site that will tell us how did people use these particular vehicles, this equipment, to live and have that maritime sort of transportation that they used. That tells you a lot about the people. So you got to start looking at these objects, that this is going to tell us a story of people. And with Nemesis, because you had such a big loss of all the crew, a lot of when all the announcement came out that it was found, the message came out. There's a lot of relatives around the world, not just in Australia, in Europe, even US, that descendants, granddaughters. I mean, the granddaughter of the captain still, lives in Sydney. To them, that even though it's been 120 years ago, to them it's still a connection. And even to a point now, I haven't spoken to any relatives that to do with the Nemesis, and I'm trying to do, because there are concerns from them that the fact that the wreck is dived, and because even Brad Duncan at the time, he said there's no worry about divers with Nemesis, but they didn't realize that we're going to dive this. We can actually reach these type of depths. So you need to start. So that rings alarm bells to the relatives. Okay, what's the intentions? What are these divers are going to do? Are they going to disturb the wreck? Are they going to take things off it? Which obviously, the connection we have with the Heritage Office, all the work we've done through the year, and I was even worked closely with Tim Smith and Brad Duncan and advisory panel, so they know what we do. We're respectable. We study the wrecks. We don't touch them. We don't disturb anything. We don't move a single object on them. So, but if we can reach it, there's other divers, they can do this type of diving, we'll be able to dive it. So I can see the concern from the relatives and all that. So you need to be sensitive with regards to when we talk about these wrecks. And yeah, it's good fun, we can have fun and laugh about certain things, but for some people, it's a raw emotion. So you need to be very sensitive to that. I've met, we did a memorial with the Noongar, even though we haven't dived the Noongar. We've had a lot of media coverage with regards to the Noongar. I've met most of the relatives because you got to remember it's a recent event, 1969. So daughters, sons, everyone, is around, and everyone, to them, this is, as it happened recently. So I've got to meet them, absolutely some of the most amazing human beings. I'm still in touch with them today, and hopefully we'll be able to dive the wreck and put a memorial plaque on their behalf over there, which they are very keen on. So we need to keep in mind that what we're doing is anthropology. We are telling someone else's story. We're trying to uncover a story of people.
Well, what you're doing though is you're also bringing closure to an open book and an unknown ending.
Correct.
Particularly when you take Nemesis as an example.
Yes.
No one really knew where it went down. It was just a guess, and it might be this that we've found on radar.
Definitely.
So you're actually bringing closure, and I'm sure there's people, even this one's 120 years ago, but there's going to be that family connection, and there's going to be someone that feels like you've closed it and be truly grateful for it.
Yeah, definitely. And look, there's definitely valid concerns from people who maybe don't understand diving and thinking, divers have just reached this, and does that mean what's going to happen? Is this now going to be like a diveable site that people are going to go out to every weekend and dive it, and without really understanding that this isn't a dive they can just sort of book on every off weekend and go dive, and that we're doing a specific task there for, as Samir said, for anthropology, and we're probably on the East Coast probably the only group of divers that will be like diving it.
Yeah.
So.
You're lucky. Maybe you dive the site once a year.
Correct.
If that. So, it's it's not like someone like Russ said, people just going to rush and dive it. But for the future, I mean, look, we've come technologically in diving knowledge and physiology and decompression and everything else so far that guys are doing 200 plus meter dives in caves and all that. Whether there's been even wreck dives have been done in some places to that depth, but that's very few and far in between. So so you just need to keep in mind, even diving any kind of shipwreck anywhere, that there's going to be people attached to it. There's going to be someone going to be attached to that. So if even just moving one single object, you are distorting a history, potential story. There is a story in every piece of wreckage on the bottom. As sometimes you might say, it's nothing, just a piece of metal. That piece of metal could potentially tell you a story, and it's important for us not to disturb, just be respectful, understand what's going on. And again, us talking about the diving aspect is good for divers, because that's what we're into, but we just want to put emphasis that go read about the history, understand the story of these, vessels that carried people back 120 years ago, and that will tell us how they lived. What was the culture like? What was it like working on these vessels? What was it like? Even to a point like it's like, what was their emotional state when they were doing certain tasks or certain things? It's a culture thing. At the end of the day, it's a human connection that we're dealing with here. It's not a natural environment. It's still something we humans put it down there. Yeah. So we are trying to tell the story of each other. So
conserve what you see.
Correct.
And if your Instagram photo is a priority to you, then maybe don't go and dive on these sites.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah. Happy days. Well, I think it's about time we bring the show to a close. We've been going on, and Jock's ready to fall asleep now.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not doing another diving podcast.
Yeah, exactly right.
Fellas, it's been a fantastic afternoon having you guys in the studio.
Even Pips.
Clearly, Pip's got a new friend.
Yeah. Pip's just excited to get us out of here, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next for you guys, though? What's on the agenda?
So probably, I think the Noon guy is still like that on the list to do. I think we definitely want to achieve that. As Samir said before, we want to do another dive on the Nemesis and get more photogrammetry on it.
Yeah.
We're trying to do back more of the South Coast stuff as well, down to those 140 meter stuff.
The state of boats. I mean, as we all know, even Victoria, New South Wales, the dive boat situation is very crap, to say the least. Obviously, for this type of diving, we're trying to use, fishing, commercial boats and all that, and that's been difficult. The vessel that we've been using, charter down of Bermagui, unfortunately, the owner's been a little bit nasty to us for whatever reason, and just cancelled twice, 2 trips in a row, and so we are sort of struggling in that regard, which is just sad, because back then you could just book a boat willy-nilly. But one of the things we want to do with the Nemesis is the photogrammetry part. So we want to get a really detailed map of the site. The only issue is boat costs a lot of money. I mean, it's literally, I think that cost us nearly $6,000 just for that one dive. So
that's not including gases and everything else that we supply.
Exactly. So it's a very expensive exercise. It's not something that we can just go out and do any time and all that. So we're trying to reach out and get sponsorship just to cover the cost of these dives, because it's like I said, a worthy exercise to try and document that this wreck as much as possible. And sort of reaching out to anyone and everyone out there, if you can help out in any form or shape, or even just, people out there, young blokes, videographers, if you want to come on the boat and do we want to do some mini documentaries and all that. So definitely, it's a good something different. Just you need your time basically, and please reach out. But the Noongar is the one we really, really, really want to do. But the currents are just always there. I've watched it every single day and talk to the skipper. And but there's another the Wollongong bar that we're trying to get up there and do a photogrammetry on it. We've been talking about this, and we might do this sooner than later. So because we can't get on the Noongar, so let's concentrate on something worthy that we can do. So,
well, you've got to be sensible about them, haven't you? If you're saying that these currents are coming through 24/7 on that site, then maybe now is not the time to be looking at that and look at something. Yeah,
but we've been looking at the Noongar for 5 years now, so
could be another 5 years.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, I think we'll constantly sort of look at the Noongar and see when the best opportunity is, whilst also doing other projects at the same time. Nemesis was one of those projects.
Fellas, thank you very much for coming in and spending your time in the studio. I think for everyone who's listening, you'll probably be able to find the three of us at the Go Diving show next weekend. So if you see us wandering around at the show, don't be shy. Say hi,
please come
and you can also find this man on the stage at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
1:30 on the Sunday. So there'll be a lot more footage. There's a video that I'm going to be showing, and a lot more detail into the whole project from how it all started. So
happy days. All right, and if you've not got your tickets yet, then we'll put a link into the show notes, and we'll see you there.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Aaron.
Cheers, fellas.
Appreciate it, mate.
Thanks, folks. Bye for now.